Chapter 923. I didn't mean to hide it. Please don't blame me. Lung Shiqi's attitude was very humble. Seeing Lung Shiqi like this, Old Man Xiao was even more satisfied. How could I blame you? It would have been better for you to hide. Unfortunately, you exposed yourself in order to help me out. Actually, I could have escaped at any time, but that would have cost me a lot of spirit energy. You didn't have to take the risk. Old man, you are the pillar of the Thunder Flame dynasty. I can't let you fall into any danger. Let's not talk too much. Old Man Xiao flipped his hand and took out a strange flower. This flower only had a single green petal. It looked a bit strange. However, that lone petal was actually emitting the aura of the pure law of wood. It was actually a treasure that contained the power of law. No wonder Ingqinha and the Divine Lotus Fairy were so envious. Old Man Xiao handed the spirit flower over. The two of them were fighting over this flower. I don't know what it's called. You were the one who defeated the two of them, so it should be yours. Old man is too polite. This treasure is yours. I don't dare to take it. Lung Shiqi didn't take it. In truth, this treasure didn't have any practical meaning to him. It's not that I don't appreciate it, but this treasure is of no use to me. Seeing Lung Shiqi so determined, Old Man Xiao said, "Fine, I won't force you. This place is filled with treasures. If you find a suitable treasure, it'll be yours." From what he said, he was planning to travel with Lung Shiqi. That was how it should be. However, Lung Shiqi had a difficult expression. "Old man, the treasure is a small matter. I think it's better to gather the Heaven Origin Realm cultivators. The monsters here are quite strong. The key is that if they encounter the profound, comprehending experts of other dynasties, it'll be terrible. I suggest we split up and gather everyone together. It'll be safer and easier to find treasures." "That's true. Take this. As long as we're within 5,000 kilometers, we'll be able to sense each other." Old Man Xiao took out a jade pendant. "All right, I'll take my leave first. Take care of yourself, old master." With that, Lung Shiqi turned into a stream of light and left. Old Master Xiao sighed with emotion. The student surpassed the master and flew in the other direction. The reason why Lung Shiqi revealed part of his strength was to avoid some trouble. After all, it was inconvenient for a Tianyuan cultivator to walk around here. Not only could he help Old Master Xiao out of his predicament, but it would also be beneficial to him. It could be considered as killing two birds with one stone. Several hundred miles away, Six Directions, Spirit Sovereign, and Enigmatic Flame Taoist had gloomy expressions. They had clearly seen the battle between Lung Shiqi and Divine Lotus Fairy. Enigmatic Flame Maestro said in a low voice, "Liuhe, this is the Heaven Origin Realm Brett you spoke of?" Six Directions, Spiritual Supremacy, had fought with Lung Shiqi before. Naturally, he recognized the Death Sword Principle and the Three-God Saber Realm. Lung Shiqi was the mysterious expert who had stopped him from entering the Blood Garment Pavilion. "So it's you. It's actually you." Even Six Directions, Spiritual Supremacy, was shocked beyond words. "Lung Shiqi, you've already broken through to the Mystic Comprehending Realm 10 years ago, but you've been hiding your identity. No wonder you succeeded the Blood Garment Pavilion, and no wonder the Thunderblaze dynasty kept quiet. You've hidden yourself well." Six Directions, Spiritual Supremacy, also felt like his intelligence had been insulted. He had clearly been made a fool of. Not only did the killing intent in his heart not decrease, but it also grew stronger. If he did not kill such a peerless genius now, who would be able to kill him in the future? "Enigmatic Flame, I'll definitely kill him. Just state your conditions." "Still want to kill him?" Enigmatic Flame Taoist shook his head. "You should know best how difficult it is to kill a Mystic Comprehending Realm cultivator. Even if the two of us can injure him, we can't kill him." "Who said it's just the two of us?" Six Directions, Spiritual Supremacy, smiled sinisterly. "What do you mean, spiritual supremacy?" Six Directions, Spiritual Supremacy, narrowed his eyes and said, "That Lung Shiqi is from the Thunderblaze dynasty. His existence is a great threat to the Starfall dynasty, and he's also made enemies." Enigmatic Flame Taoist understood. Spiritual supremacy. You want to pull Chinha and the Divine Lotus Fairy into our alliance. If the two of them agree, we'll have a high chance of killing Lung Shichi with 4 mystic comprehending realm cultivators. However, there's a condition. Old man Xiao must be lured away. 6 directions, spiritual supremacy's delusion breaker spirit eye flashed with a dazzling light. Then, his face revealed a look of surprise, which quickly turned into a look of ecstasy. Ha ha ha, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. That Lung Shichi actually took the initiative to leave Old Man Xiao. He's really courting death. Let's go. We'll go finding Chinha and the Divine Lotus Fairy now. The two of them turned into streaks of light and quickly swept across the sky. On the other side, the Divine Lotus Fairy said to Chinha with a displeased expression, "Look at the kind of people you've provoked. They insisted on fighting over a spirit flower, but now they've gone for wool and come home shorn. Enough. If you didn't covet that spirit flower, why would you join forces with me? I've heard that the Divine Lotus Fairy's abilities are strange and unfathomable. In the end, you were defeated by a rising star in 2 moves. I'm afraid you don't live up to your reputation." China had a powerful background in the Starfall dynasty, so his words were unyielding. The Divine Lotus Fairy was both angry and annoyed. Don't just stand there and talk. Go and fight that Ling Shichi. He won't even need to take a breather after 2 moves. With such strength, even Wuma Yuanjia won't be able to win against him. Fairy, you're exaggerating too much. Chinha didn't believe her. Wuma Yuanjia was the strongest person in the Starfall dynasty, and he cultivated 2 types of laws of heaven and earth at the same time. In the entire world, no one dared to say that they could beat him. Just as the two were bickering, 2 other streams of light pierced through the air and arrived. Chinha and the Divine Lotus Fairy immediately became vigilant. Bickering was one thing, but they were still in an alliance for now. 6 directions, Spirit Sovereign and Enigmatic Flame Taoist withdrew their spiritual light. Do you two have time to listen to this, Sovereign? In another broken ruin, an old beggar in ragged clothes muttered, "The original building style and materials are not from the Starfall continent. This is indeed a broken world fragment. What do the 4 sages want to do when they use the holy city to trap this world fragment?" In another monster cave, a young man with half his face burned was holding a purple bead in his hand. He said, "It looks a bit like a Yao core, but it's not. What kind of monsters are these?" Back then, the Desolate Heaven Demon Emperor told me to keep a low profile and find a chance to enter the holy city. This means that the holy city is the key to breaking through that barrier. In a rippling lake, a mysterious blue-robed man stepped on the surface of the water. It's the same water, but it's made up of different energies. Does this mean that the same law power will be different? I think I understand. Chapter 924. Inside an abandoned palace, 2 Heaven Origin Realm cultivators from the Thunderblaze dynasty were working together to break a formation. Just as they were about to succeed, 4 figures strangely appeared behind them. Only then did the 2 realize it, but it was already too late. A moment later, 6 directions Spirit Sovereign carried the 2 unconscious people and said, "Lung Shichi is flying in this direction. He's not very fast, so he must be looking for something. He won't miss this palace. If he discovers that someone is trying to kill the Heaven Origin Realm cultivators of the Thunderblaze dynasty, he will definitely save them. That will be our chance." 6 directions Spirit Sovereign quickly convinced Chinha and the Divine Lotus Fairy. They all wanted to kill Lung Shichi, so they quickly formed an alliance. Right now, they had thought of a good way to ambush Lung Shichi. Now, we need one of us to show up and attract Lung Shichi's attention. We also need to fight him. While he's unprepared, the other 3 will attack with all their strength. Lung Shichi will definitely die or be crippled. 6 directions Spirit Sovereign looked at the other 3 as he spoke. The 4 of them looked at each other and finally looked at Enigma Flame Taoist. Among the 4 of them, only Enigma Flame Taoist had not seen Lung Shichi before, so there was no grudge between them. Lung Shiqi would never think that Enigma Flame Taoist was a trap. Enigma Flame Taoist immediately felt great pressure, but the arrow was already knocked, so he could only agree. Not long after, Lung Shiqi passed by the palace and found two Heaven Origin Realm cultivators of the Thunderblaze dynasty fleeing in a sorry state. He subconsciously scanned with his divine perception, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. His cultivation had long surpassed the mystic comprehending realm. No matter how well Six Directions, Spirit Sovereign, and the other two hid, they were still instantly discovered by him. Lung Shiqi was filled with killing intent as he thought. Good fella, so they wanted to ambush me. Just nice, I need a few mystic comprehending realm heads. He then descended from the sky and stood in front of Lung Shiqi. When the two Heavenly Origin Realm martial artists saw Lung Shiqi, they were shocked. Lung Shiqi, run. This old man is a Tongxian Realm martial artist. Lung Shiqi didn't say anything. He waved his hand, and a powerful force sent the two men hundreds of miles away. He asked coldly, "Who are you? Why are you chasing after the people of my Thunderblaze dynasty?" Enigma Flame Old Man put on an act and even mocked. "Who are you to dare meddle in this old master's business? Besides, the treasures in this holy city are ownerless. Whoever is stronger will own them. Leave quickly, and this old man will spare your life for now." Lung Shiqi seemed to have gone mad. "Whoever you say is stronger will be the winner. Let's see who is stronger." Before he finished speaking, the ash wolf behind him howled at the moon and punched out, shaking the mountains and shaking the earth. Enigma Flame Old Man's face was filled with anger, but he was laughing in his heart. As expected, he's still young. Just a few words, and he's already enraged. He formed a strange seal with both hands, and a demonic god phantom died and dark green flames appeared behind him. It held the Inferno Divine Spear and stabbed at Lung Shiqi. The terrifying law of fire cleansed the void, and the divine spear broke Lung Shiqi's punch. Lung Shiqi clenched his fists, and a loud explosion sounded. The ear-piercing sound of the explosion scattered the surrounding heaven and earth origin chi. His pure physical strength almost tore the void apart. Enigma Flame Old Man's Inferno Divine Spear was directly shattered by the punch, and even the flame divinity behind him shook. What powerful strength! Enigma Flame Old Man was shocked. He finally experienced what the divine Lotus Fairy felt. If he were to fight Lung Shiqi alone, he would probably be suppressed from start to finish. However, he knew that now was not the best time for Six Direction Spirit Sovereign and the others to make a move. He changed the seal in his hand, and a strange fire god bow condensed in the flame divinity's hand. The dark green flames became more and more gloomy, no longer burning the sky. Instead, they turned into eroding flames. Just the aura alone made his primordial spirit feel a burning pain. Lung Shiqi's body shone with golden light, and the roars of dragons filled the sky. 9 giant dragons burning with raging flames roared out, and the law of fire in the world almost condensed into substance. Half of the sky was dyed red gold. This was the red gold earth dragon flame, which had evolved into its ultimate state and was able to trigger the law of heaven and earth. In an instant, the overbearing, burning power of the red gold earth dragon flame began to melt Enigma Flame Old Man's divine phantom. He could not even shoot out the arrows of eroding flames and was forced to retreat. He found it even harder to believe that he would be defeated by flames. There were many spirit cultivators in the world who cultivated flames, but he was the only one in the mystic comprehending realm. This was what he had always been proud of. But now, Lung Shiqi's appearance had almost shattered his belief. Lung Shiqi was proficient in both sword and saber, had a strong physical body, and had even comprehended the law of fire. Why did the heavens allow such a person to exist? Enigma Flame Old Man, who originally had no grudges with Lung Shiqi, felt boundless killing intent for the first time. He secretly shouted, "Why aren't you making a move? What are you waiting for?" In the corner, Ingchina's palm fell. The surrounding heaven and earth origin chi instantly condensed and then exploded. The violent power was held in his hand, and even the surrounding void was faintly torn apart. This was the long-passed, down ninth-level spiritual technique of the Starfall dynasty, the Great Palm Print. At the same time, lotus flowers fell from the sky like rain. Each lotus flower contained a terrifying power. The divine lotus fairy made a hand seal, and countless lotus flowers exploded. Not only did they ignite the power of heaven and earth, but they also cooperated with Ingchina's power to seal off all of Lung Shichi's escape routes. Finally, Six Directions' spirit sovereign brazenly made his move. Above the nine heavens, divine light bloomed and tore open the sky. Six divine statues that seemed to have come from ancient times descended. At this moment, the space seemed to stagnate. The power was so strong that even heaven and earth could not withstand it. It was not the Six Directions' divine statues, but the Six Directions' sacred statues. It was an object that Six Directions' holy sovereign had created back then. Every time the Six Directions' sacred statues were used, it would consume a large amount of origin energy. In order to kill Lung Shichi, Six Directions' spirit sovereign did not hold back at all. Lung Shichi's expression did not change. The 10,000 beast Dharma idol instantly appeared around him. The phantom of the divine beast supported him, causing his physical strength to reach the limit. He still threw out a simple punch, but this punch faintly caused the heavens and earth to tremble. The power of the punch, which could shatter all things, directly shattered the great Yuan splitting palm and even blasted the lotus flowers that filled the sky into pieces. It was also at this moment that the eyes of the six sacred statues lit up with a terrifying divine light. It was as if they had come to life. They formed seals one after another, and countless divine light condensed into a heavenly net in midair that fell towards Lung Shichi. There was the power of wind and fire, as well as the power of life and slaughter, saber force, sword intent, and various other powers. These six sacred statues were like six mystic, comprehending realm elites. Chapter 925. Lung Shichi mumbled as the holy statues of six harmonies descended with boundless divine aura. They do look like Ascension Realm cultivators, but it's just a facade. What holy statues of six harmonies? They're just a bunch of inanimate objects. The sword will of death exploded, forming six sword shadows behind Lung Shichi. Countless thoughts of death, resentment, and hatred spread out. This was the most extreme sword of evil thoughts in the world, and it should not exist in this world. The six sword shadows slashed out instantly, heading straight for the six holy statues. In an instant, the laws of heaven and earth shook, and the space exploded. The sword of evil thoughts was far more terrifying than anyone had expected. It broke through the various forces like the heavenly net and landed heavily on the holy statues. With a series of loud bangs, the heavenly net was torn apart, and even the six idols had a clear crack on them. How is this possible? Six Harmonies of spiritual supremacy was shocked and furious. What kind of sword principle was that? It could easily break the heavenly net and even damage his holy statues. Each holy statue was personally created by Six Harmonies' spiritual supremacy, and it was not something a Tongxian realm cultivator could break. While he was shocked, his heart was bleeding. Not only did the holy statues he summoned lose their saint power, but they were also damaged. It was as if a piece of his heart had been dug out. Of course, it was impossible to do this with just the sword principle of death. Lung Shichi had attached a trace of the law of reincarnation to the sword principle of death. Any force that came into contact with the law of reincarnation would be rotated thousands of times in an instant until it disappeared without a trace. The combined attack of 4 Tongxian realm cultivators had been completely neutralized by Lung Shichi. "It's my turn." He smiled coldly. With a flip of his hand, a dark golden brilliance spread out, forming a dark golden canopy hundreds of miles wide in the blink of an eye. Immediately, 6 harmonies of spiritual supremacy, and the other 3 Tongxian realm cultivators felt 1,000-fold, 10,000-fold gravity on their bodies. The ground cracked and collapsed continuously, and it only stopped after a few hundred feet. The 4 Tongxian realm cultivators were surrounded by spiritual light of various colors, and the power of law protected their bodies. Even so, it could not hide the shock on their faces. The law of gravity. He has mastered the law of earth as well? No, we're all Tongxian realm cultivators. Why is his gravity suppressing all 4 of us? It's you, it's all you. Other than being shocked, the 4 of them had different reactions. Enchanting, profound flame Taoist, and sacred lotus fairy were even more incredulous. As for 6 directions, spirit sovereign, he seemed to have recalled something. He finally understood that the Tongxian realm cultivator who had stopped him in the imperial capital was Lung Shiqi. That's true, Lung Shiqi. From the beginning to the end, the person who ruined his plans again and again was Lung Shiqi. The 6 directions spiritual sovereign was seething with anger, and his spiritual power suddenly erupted. He actually forcibly withstood the 10,000-fold gravity and pointed a finger at the sky. Divine light condensed in midair like a cage, wanting to strangle Lung Shiqi within it. Do you think there's only gravity? Lung Shiqi pointed with his finger, and an unremarkable black sphere suddenly appeared near Enigma, Flame Maestro. Immediately after, a terrifying suction force emerged from the black sphere. Everything in the surroundings, including the vital energy of heaven and earth, including the power of laws, and even 6 directions spiritual sovereign's boundless divine light, was forcefully pulled toward this side. This was not a gravitational space, but a space of 2 extremes. What the hell? Enigma Flame Maestro could not help but curse when he saw the divine light surging toward him. He was already resisting the 10,000 times gravity. In a hurry, he closed and opened his eyes, and his eyes turned pitch black, as if they were burning with black flames. It looked extremely evil. Enigma Flame Maestro's aura suddenly skyrocketed. He chanted a strange incantation, and a chilly wind blew in midair. The mournful wails of evil spirits rang out, and the deathly aura and boundless flames condensed into a strange demon god that shattered 6 directions spiritual sovereign's divine light. The other 3 people were also in a bad situation. They were affected by the gravitational force and the suction force at the same time. The spiritual power in their bodies was constantly churning, and they were almost out of control. The 4 people who were supposed to join forces to kill Lung Shiqi were now suppressed by him alone. He was fighting 1 against 4, but he still had the upper hand. Faced with this situation, 6 directions spiritual sovereign was furious. Divine Lotus Fairy, Enchanting, why did the 2 of you hold back when you launched the surprise attack? What's the use of using such probing attacks? If you attacked with all your strength, Lung Shiqi would definitely be at a disadvantage and killed by us. How could there be such a situation now? The 2 people's faces were as black as the bottom of a pot. They did hold back, but they did not do it on purpose. On the contrary, they also wanted to kill Lung Shiqi. Moreover, the 2 of them did indeed block all of Lung Shiqi's escape routes. If it were any other metaphysical realm cultivator, they would have no way to retreat and would have to face the 6 directions sacred statue directly. They had calculated well, but they did not expect Lung Shiqi to be stronger than they had imagined. 6 directions spiritual sovereign knew that it was useless to say these things now. He transmitted his voice. He must have consumed a lot of energy to maintain the law of earth of this intensity. We will attack with defense. Even if we have to exhaust him, we can still kill him. Also, I hope that no one will continue to hide their strength. If we can't take him down today, not only will we lose face, we will also offend this expert. Then, no one will have a good life in the future. The divine Lotus Fairy gritted her teeth. Her hands fluttered as she made a series of hand seals. The illusory kingdom descended once again. She used the power of her kingdom to forcefully resist Lung Shiqi's space of 2 extremes. Lung Shiqi's eyes turned cold. He stretched out his hand and grabbed. In an instant, stars appeared like the Milky Way. Let's see if the power of your kingdom or the power of the stars is stronger. The universe of stars seemed to form a world of its own. It slowly pressed down. The terrifying suppressive force shattered the illusory kingdom in an instant. The divine lotus fairy groaned. Clearly, she had suffered some backlash. An illusory image of a divine lotus appeared behind her. Layers of lotus flowers bloomed one after another, emitting waves of evil light. The white lotus was bewitching. Countless lotus petals danced in the air, but they had the ability to seduce one's soul. Lung Shiqi only glanced at them. His expression froze, and the light in his eyes seemed to be a little sluggish. "Quick! I can only restrain him for an instant," the divine lotus fairy immediately shouted. "A chance!" Enigmatic flame Taoist figure moved. The black flame demon god raised evil flames that filled the sky. They transformed into ghosts and howled as they charged at Lung Shiqi. Ingqinha's hands danced. There was no spiritual light, but one could feel the power of law being drawn by him. It was as if invisible threads were condensing. The invisible silk thread couldn't be caught in the slightest trace as it silently wrapped itself around Lung Shiqi's body. At that moment, Lung Shiqi suddenly felt the power in his body rapidly dissipating. It was as if the threads were sucking it away. Six Directions' spirit sovereign's face flushed red. His body transformed into 6 streaks of spiritual light and sank into the 6 sacred statues. Immediately after, the 6 sacred statues stood there like real people, forming a combined attack array. Myriad phenomena appeared in the sky. In the end, it evolved into a dreamlike and incomparably beautiful myriad worlds painting. Chapter 926. The picture of myriad worlds was filled with a terrifying power that could sweep across the world and destroy everything in its path. Lung Shiqi seemed to be in a daze as he said slowly, "Illusions? I know them too." He didn't seem to make any movements, but a white light suddenly appeared and spread hundreds of miles away at an extremely fast speed. The consciousness of the 4 people in the space of 2 extremes was immediately attacked and pulled into an illusion in the blink of an eye. Illusion's divine illusion sky. This type of illusion had already surpassed the form of illusions. It directly invaded one's primordial spirit, tampered with one's memories, and changed one's thoughts without one's knowledge. Just like 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy at this moment, he maintained the picture of myriad worlds and was about to crush Lung Shiqi's starry sky universe. However, at this moment, he suddenly felt a sense of fear towards Lung Shiqi. He did not know where this feeling of fear came from, but it was a fear that came from his bones and soul. The intense fear caused 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy's spiritual energy to become unstable, and the picture of myriad worlds even showed signs of collapsing. However, 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy was not an ordinary person. Although he was afraid, he wanted to kill Lung Shiqi more. Boom, boom! The starry sky universe suddenly shattered, and the picture of myriad worlds finally suppressed the space of 2 extremes. Under the influence of the space of 2 extremes and the divine illusion sky, you still have such a strong combat power. 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy is indeed the successor of the 4 sages. Lung Shiqi could not help but think highly of 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy. He waved one hand, and in an instant the law of earth surged. 36 earth-shattering dragons broke out from the ground and roared. As the power of earth exploded, the 36 earth-shattering dragons intertwined and tore at the sky. They collided with the picture of myriad worlds. At the same time, Lung Shiqi reached out and grabbed. The blurry starlight transformed into an arm that grabbed Ingqinha, who was still in the illusion, tightly. They were both under the divine illusion sky, but 6 Directions' spiritual supremacy's combat power did not decrease, while Ingqinha was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, Even though they were both in the mystic comprehending state, the difference in their abilities was huge. At this moment, Chinha finally regained his senses. However, what awaited him was Lung Shiqi's heaven-shaking fist. As the fist landed, the formless energy around Chinha's body surged madly, but it was unable to stop it. Lung Shiqi's fist landed squarely on Chinha. The ferocious power of 10,000 beasts strangled all the meridians in his body, causing his face to contort in an instant. Lung Shiqi then lightly tapped Chinha's forehead with a finger. Instantly, boundless death energy erupted. The Thunderflame Dynasty's new Tongxian realm expert, Chinha, had fallen. It had to be said that Chinha was the weakest of the four. From beginning to end, he posed almost no threat to Lung Shiqi. At most, he could only use some restrictive spiritual techniques. No matter what, he was still a Tongxian realm expert. Perhaps he had some trump cards that he had yet to use, or perhaps he was preparing a killing move. However, it was a pity that it was all too late. As the saying goes, it is better to cut off one finger than to injure all 10. Killing one person first would greatly reduce the pressure on the other 3, but the pressure on the other 3 would greatly increase. Lung Shiqi took away Chinha's soul and said in a low voice, 1. At the side, the divine Lotus Fairy woke up the moment Lung Shiqi killed Chinha. She just happened to see the scene of Chinha's death. A sense of terror arose spontaneously. This was not caused by an illusion. At this moment, the divine Lotus Fairy truly felt the terror of Lung Shiqi. In a situation of 1 against 4, not only did he easily gain the upper hand, he even killed Chinha in a few moves. The reason why the 4 of them had to work together to kill Lung Shiqi was because it was too difficult to kill a Tongxian realm expert. But now, it seemed that it was not that difficult. Lung Shiqi slightly turned his head and looked at the divine Lotus Fairy. This glance caused the divine Lotus Fairy's body to turn cold. She cried out in alarm, "Quickly kill him!" Enigmatic Flame Elder was startled awake. When he saw Chinha's corpse, his shock was no less than the divine Lotus Fairy's. 6 Directions Spirit Elder held up the Myriad Worlds map and saw that the 30 Earth Dragons had been destroyed. He was about to speak when Lung Shiqi casually shot out a gray sword chi. However, it was this inconspicuous sword chi that made 6 Directions Spirit Elder feel an extremely terrifying threat. It also made him swallow back the words he was about to say. Lung Shiqi no longer paid attention to 6 Directions Spirit Elder. He moved his hands. One hand shone with resplendent starlight, while the other hand was surrounded by black chi. Divine Lotus Fairy and Enigmatic Flame Elder were about to counterattack when the scene in front of them suddenly changed. Enigmatic Flame Elder appeared in a vast universe. The galaxy flowed, and nebulas filled the air. Suddenly, the nebulas began to slowly rotate. It seemed slow, but in the blink of an eye, they condensed into 6 huge whirlpools the size of the sky. 6 completely different but powerful forces were emitted. Enigmatic Flame Elder's spiritual power erupted, and flames rose around him. However, what shocked him was that the flames he had cultivated his entire life were suppressed by more than half here. He originally wanted to summon Demon God Black Flame, but he couldn't even summon a prototype. Only now did he realize that in this universe, the power of law was abnormally thin. In other words, he couldn't even use half of his strength. For the first time, Enigmatic Flame Elder felt despair. If he continued to fight, he would very likely follow in Chinha's footsteps. He said with a slight panic, "No, this old man has no enmity with you. This old man was just tempted by the benefits. This old man will retreat now. In the future, wherever you go, this old man will retreat 10,000 miles." Unfortunately, before he could finish his words, countless monsters emerged from the 6 vortexes. Some were like indifferent gods, some were humans, and most of them were all kinds of strange creatures. Enigmatic Flame Elder's body was instantly devoured by the countless monsters. Not even his bones were left. On the other side, The divine Lotus Fairy had arrived in darkness. The extreme darkness made it so that she couldn't even see herself. The divine Lotus Fairy moved her hand seals, and golden lotuses shone around her, illuminating her surroundings. However, there was nothing here, only darkness. Then, she suddenly realized that her golden lotuses were actually being devoured by the darkness. What was even more terrifying was that no matter how many golden lotuses she summoned, they no longer appeared. It was as if they had been ruthlessly devoured by the darkness as soon as they appeared. When the last golden lotus around her dissipated, only endless darkness remained. Even if she used all her strength, she couldn't create the slightest bit of light. She, a dignified Tongxian realm expert, was actually trapped in darkness. If Lung Shiqi attacked at this time, she definitely wouldn't be able to resist. She began to panic. In fact, without her noticing, the darkness had already begun to devour her body, starting from her fingernails, slowly to her hands and feet, to her heart, to her head. By the time the divine Lotus Fairy noticed this, her hands and feet were already gone. In the boundless darkness, there was only her scream and nothing else. In the space of two extremes, enigmatic flame, elder, and divine Lotus Fairy's bodies disappeared at the same time, and then they never appeared again. Lung Shiqi clapped his hands and said, "3 now." Chapter 927. Enigmatic flame, elder, and divine Lotus Fairy disappeared one after another. 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign's eyelids twitched when he saw this. However, he was not in a mood to care and could only try his best to resist the gray sword Qi. The seemingly ordinary sword Qi directly pierced through the myriad worlds painting. Wherever the sword Qi went, the myriad worlds and heavens were destroyed. 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign was shocked and furious. He controlled the 6 Directions holy statue to continuously transform the heavens before he could block the sword Qi. What sword Qi is this? How can it be so terrifying? 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign could not understand. The myriad worlds painting that he had used all his strength to display was already his strongest trump card, but it had almost failed to block that sword Qi. How strong was Lung Shiqi? Every time Lung Shiqi attacked, it would overturn everyone's understanding of him. Not long ago, 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign used his spirit eyes to see the battle between Lung Shiqi and Divine Lotus Fairy from afar and recognized Lung Shiqi's identity. However, at that time, Lung Shiqi's strength was only at the middle level of the mystic comprehending realm. Although there was no specific division in the mystic comprehending realm, the more laws one comprehended, the stronger one would naturally become. The dozen or so mystic comprehending realm cultivators in the world could be divided into 3 levels. The first level was those who had just entered the mystic comprehending realm, like Ying-Qin He. It was extremely difficult to comprehend the laws, and they had only cultivated for a short time, so their strength was naturally at the bottom. The second level was those like Divine Lotus Fairy and Enigmatic Flame Elder. They had lived for hundreds of years, so their foundation and laws were definitely not weak. It was a pity that they were independent cultivators after all. Although they could easily create an extraordinary organization with their strength, they were nowhere close to organizations like the Yin and Yang Halls, the 3 Empires, and the 4 Saint Spiritual Realms that had existed for ages. The strongest group was naturally the mystic comprehending realm cultivators mentioned above. 6 Directions Spirit Sovereign felt that his strength could definitely rank in the top 5 among all the mystic comprehending realm cultivators. When Lung Shiqi had faced the joint attack of the 4, he had neutralized their attacks one by one. The strength he had displayed was clearly stronger than Enigma Flame Maestro's. At that time, 6 Direction Spirit Senior had also been slightly surprised. In his heart, he still believed that Lung Shiqi could not possibly be stronger than him. However, as Lung Shiqi used the space of 2 extremes, the starry universe and the divine illusion sky, he used the law of earth, the law of stars, and the law of illusion respectively. After that, he killed Ying-Qin He with a single strike. The fate of Enigma Flame Old Man and Divine Lotus Fairy was unknown. How could a person cultivate so many different laws at the same time? Was he still human? At this moment, Six Directions' spiritual supremacy had to admit that he was no match for Lung Shiqi. What was the upper limit of Lung Shiqi's strength? How many people in the world could defeat him? The most frightening thing was that when Lung Shiqi stretched out his 5 fingers, 6 gray sword energies appeared behind him at the same time. There were 6 of them. Just one of them had almost caused Six Directions' spiritual lord's universe map to collapse. 6 streaks of sword aura? What a joke. Six Directions' spiritual lord's heart was filled with regret. Why did he have to kill Lung Shiqi and provoke such a terrifying existence? Of course, he was more afraid. That's right, the arrogant Six Directions' spiritual lord was afraid. He knew that he could not withstand the 6 streaks of sword aura and could only escape now. To think that he, the great Six Directions' spiritual lord, had joined forces with 3 ethereal comprehending cultivators to kill Lung Shiqi. In the end, 3 of them died, and he had to escape pathetically. This was the biggest joke in the world. However, Six Directions' spiritual lord had underestimated the power of the sword aura. The 6 streaks of sword aura seemed to have crossed space and swept past the universe map, heading straight for the Six Directions' holy statue. Six Directions' spiritual lord's divine thought was attached to the Six Directions' holy statue. He was shocked and immediately left the Six Directions' holy statue. The divine light around him shone brightly and vaguely formed a magic array. With a series of crisp sounds, the indestructible Six Directions' holy statue was shattered and turned into powder. When Lung Shiqi saw the magic array, he recalled that Six Directions' spiritual lord had traveled tens of thousands of miles to reach the Blood Garment Pavilion. It must be a magic array similar to the interdomain teleportation formation. If Six Directions' spiritual lord escaped, there would be endless trouble in the future. He did not hide his strength anymore. With a wave of his hand, tens of thousands of streaks of sword aura swept across heaven and earth. Each streak of sword aura was the same sword aura that had easily destroyed the Six Directions' holy statue. Six Directions' spiritual lord's movements instantly froze. He was completely stunned. It was only at this moment that he realized that there was an almost undetectable light gray thread lingering around each of the sword aura. It was these threads that made the sword aura so powerful. Tens of thousands of streaks of sword aura sliced through heaven and earth. The void shattered and instantly engulfed Six Directions' spiritual lord. Law thread, you are heaven-reaching. At the moment of his death, Six Directions' spiritual lord finally understood. Lung Shiqi was not in the heavenly origin realm, nor was he in the Tongxian realm. Instead, he was in a legendary Tongxian realm. Comprehending the power of the laws of heaven and earth was the Tongxian realm. Comprehending a certain law to the extreme would allow one to materialize the law and condense the law thread. At this time, a spirit cultivator would be half a step into the Tongxian realm. Next, as long as he passed the Tongxian tribulation, he would be recognized by heaven and earth. From then on, he would stand above the 9 heavens and look down on all living things. This was the Tongxian realm. However, a Tongxian realm cultivator had not appeared for a long time. Only then did Six Directions' spiritual lord realize how stupid he was. He actually took the initiative to ambush and kill a Tongxian realm cultivator. He did not die in vain. Lung Shiqi took Six Directions' spiritual lord's soul and was satisfied. He opened the territory's system interface. Mansion of the Dead's current level, rank 8. Mansion of the Dead's upgrade requirements. 1. Accumulate 500,000 merit points. 2431 550 0000. 2. Collect 2 super souls 410. 3. 128 0000 system coins. Initially, he planned to take advantage of the opening of the Holy City and the gathering of all the Tongxian realm cultivators in the world to complete one of the Mansion of the Dead's upgrade requirements. kill 10 Tongxian realm cultivators. Originally, he thought it would be a little troublesome. Now, 4 of them came to him. After this battle, Lung Shiqi clearly knew that his strength was far above the Tongxian realm. He had comprehended the law of reincarnation and condensed the law thread. However, he did not receive the Tongxian tribulation again, so he was not sure whether he was in the Tongxian realm or not. He had once fought with Meng Tianzong, who had recovered his cultivation. Both of them were evenly matched. Of course, that was just a spar and not a fight to the death. In the past 10 years, he had never stopped accumulating his strength. He had constantly tapped into his potential and comprehended many kinds of law powers. He knew that no matter how many law powers he had, they would not be of much use when facing the will of heaven and earth. However, his opponents were not only the will of heaven and earth, but also many spirit cultivators. Today's battle was just a practice for him. When he could fight a Tongxian realm cultivator head-on, he would know how strong he was. After a simple rest, Lung Shiqi prepared to continue searching for the passage out of the falling star continent. At this moment, Tu Dang sent a message through the mansion of the dead. Found it. Chapter 928. There was no sun, moon, or stars in this world fragment, and the sky was bare. The only exception was the starry sky that spanned several miles. The stars formed a mystical pattern, and 2 figures were standing under the star map, facing each other. One of them was wearing a kasaya, and his hands were clasped together in a benevolent manner. He was Tu Dang. Tu Dang established Buddhism in the falling star continent, and he comprehended Buddhist techniques from the scriptures. He had already jumped out of the cultivation system of this world. The current Buddhism was the state religion of the West Province, and its disciples were all over the West Province. There were even many believers in the Falling Star Dynasty and Thunderfire Dynasty. Standing opposite him was Huang Wei-ling Zun of the Four Saints spiritual realm. Huang Wei-ling Zun stared at Tu Dang. Whether it was Tu Dang's strange attire or the aura he had never seen before, they all made him very curious. Of course, other than curiosity, there was more fear. Both sides had already fought before, and Huang Wei-ling Zun had suffered a loss with just one move. He quietly glanced at the star map above his head. Those stars were slowly moving, and they vaguely formed a door. A faint trace of world energy was emitted. Huang Wei-ling Zun, who knew ancient secrets, naturally guessed that it was most likely a legend passed down by his ancestors, the passage to leave the falling star continent. Huang Wei-ling Zun had been in the mystic comprehending realm for a long time, especially in the past 100 years, and he felt that if he continued to waste his energy like this, he would probably die of old age in this realm. Only by leaving the falling star continent and going to a wider world could he have a chance to break through again. The reason why Tu Dang and Huang Wei-ling Zun were staring at each other was not only because the door had not been completed, but also because there was a layer of formation under the star map. This formation did not have any grades, or it would be more appropriate to describe it as a simple restriction. It was the kind of restriction that an ordinary spiritual pulse realm expert could casually set up, and it had a certain blocking effect. However, the power of this restriction was actually the power of the Holy Spirit. Only Holy Spirit realm experts like the Four Saints could control this power. It could only be said that it was a fantasy to rely on their power to break this restriction. The crux of the matter was that neither of them was proficient in formations, and it was impossible for them to leave so easily. They could only stare at each other here. After Tu Dang fought with Huang Wei Spirit Sage, he contacted Lung Shiqi. Through the underworld, Lung Shiqi immediately rushed over. However, he didn't directly appear beside Tu Dang. Instead, he appeared several dozen li away and released his mystic comprehending aura without concealing it. Huang Wei spiritual sovereign quickly sensed this aura and frowned. Of course, he didn't want more people to find this place. However, he also hoped that there would be 1 or 2 formation breaking experts. Perhaps they would have a way to break the restriction. When Lung Shiqi arrived, Huang Weiling Zun revealed a puzzled expression and immediately said, "You have hidden yourself quite deeply. What is your name?" "Lung Shiqi." "Eh, you are the Thunderfire Dynasty's king of the West Desolation. I didn't expect you to break through to the mystic comprehending realm at such a young age." "Impressive." Huang Weiling Zun made some small talk and then asked, "Are you proficient in formations?" Lung Shiqi raised his head and looked at the restriction and the star field map. He understood and then shook his head. "I am ashamed. I have never dabbled in formations." He also felt that it was a pity. He was the first to find the clues of the passage, but he was blocked by a restriction. Lung Shiqi transmitted his voice. "Great Master Tu Deng, is this restriction really unbreakable? Actually, this old monk was the first to discover this place. I tried to move it, but I couldn't move it at all." Tu Deng's true strength was definitely above the mystic comprehending realm. Even he couldn't do anything to the restriction. It seemed that it was indeed a restriction set up by a Holy Spirit realm expert. Right now, they could only use the stupidest method, which was to wait. The space of this world fragment wasn't too big. With the speed of a mystic comprehending realm expert, it would only take a few days to go around it. It was only a matter of time before they discovered this place. They could only wait for the remaining mystic comprehending realm experts to gather. Perhaps there would be someone who knew how to break the restriction. Although there were only 13 mystic comprehending realm experts who came in and 4 of them died, that didn't include Lung Shiqi and Tu Deng. Moreover, they weren't just mystic comprehending realm experts. Tu Deng, Meng Tianzong, and Lung Shiqi had the battle strength of 3 mystic comprehending realm experts. In addition, Meng Tianzong had predicted that there would be other mystic comprehending realm experts entering the Holy City. If they couldn't break the restriction with such a powerful force, Lung Shiqi would admit defeat. Sure enough, after 2 days, there were more than 10 people gathered in front of the star field map. As for the Heaven Origin realm experts of the Thunderfire Dynasty, they didn't come over. Instead, they went to look for all kinds of treasures. Strangely, there were a few unfamiliar faces among these people. For example, the beggar, the blue-robed man, and the disfigured youth. In addition to Tu Deng and Lung Shiqi, almost half of the people in this group were mystic comprehending realm experts that the world didn't know. On the contrary, the veteran mystic comprehending realm experts like Six Directions, Spirit Sovereign, and Enigmatic Flame Elder didn't come. Wuma Yuanjia of the Starfall Dynasty frowned because Ing Qinhe didn't appear either. Could it be that something happened? There isn't much danger in this secret realm, and no one can easily kill him. That's strange. Luo Ing's Spirit Sovereign glanced at them one by one. She stroked her lips and said, "Haha, there are indeed crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the Starfall continent. Luo Ing admires the few of you who are willing to remain silent and don't care about power and glory." Huang Wei's Spirit Sovereign interrupted, "There's no need for pleasantries. Since you're able to come here, you must know the secret. Now, whether or not you can break this restriction is the key. I don't know about the others, but Luo Ing, you're an expert in the art of formations." Luo Ing's Spirit Sovereign beamed. "I've already seen the restriction. It's easy to break it, but it's also difficult." Her words instantly attracted everyone's attention. Wu Ji Spirit Sovereign hurriedly said, "Let's hear it." The restriction isn't complicated at all. It's just casually laid down. It's just that the person who laid down the restriction is an unreachable sacred spirit expert. If we want to break the restriction, we can't use brute force, but we also need to use brute force. First of all, the strength of a sacred spirit expert is beyond our reach. However, the power of this restriction won't regenerate. As long as we continue to attack the restriction and slowly wear it down, we'll be able to break it sooner or later. According to what you said, it's too slow. Who knows when we'll be able to break the restriction? The hundreds of Heaven Origin realm experts outside could come in at any time. Their strength isn't strong, but if they join forces, they'll cause us quite a bit of trouble. Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign said in a deep voice, "I naturally won't use such a stupid method. We can lay down a joint attack formation and then concentrate all of our strength on a single point. It'll be much easier to break the restriction. Perhaps it won't be long before we'll be able to break the restriction. Chapter 9:29. The method was not that brilliant, but it seemed to be the only way. Luo Ying's spirit elder quietly glanced at Jade Forest and Pure Yang Temple's Tongxian realm experts. Among the people present, these two had not spoken a word from the beginning to the end. It seemed that no one had seen them make a move, making them extremely mysterious. She rolled her eyes and said to Huang Wei's spirit elder, "It is said that Huang Wei's spiritual domain has a sword that surpasses the 9th rank. It is the Huang Wei sacred sword that was left behind by Huang Wei, sacred venerable. I suggest that we gather all our strength and put it into the Huang Wei sacred sword. This way, we will have a higher chance of breaking the formation." Luo Yingyu, Huang Wei spirit elder, was a little angry. The Huang Wei sacred sword was their spiritual domain's most precious treasure and a hidden trump card. Just like how most of the Tongxian realm experts knew that Six Direction Spirit Elder had the powerful Six Directions divine statues, they did not know that he actually had Six Directions divine statues that had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. This was the foundation of the 4 sacred domains. However, this trump card was revealed by Luo Ying's Spirit Elder in front of everyone. This was extremely disadvantageous for Huang Wei's Spirit Elder in future battles. Others would definitely be on guard against the Huang Wei sacred sword. Luo Ying's Spirit Elder smiled and said, "Huang Wei Spirit Elder, don't hide it. After all, breaking the formation is beneficial to everyone." She directly used everyone to pressure Huang Wei's Spirit Elder. As expected, a few of them spoke. Huang Wei's Spirit Elder's face was extremely gloomy. While he was still hesitating, the expert from Pure Yang Temple said, "Take out the Huang Wei sacred sword. This formation will definitely be broken." Jade Forest from Nether Temple also said under Lung Shiqi's signal, "Don't waste time." The 2 experts from Yin and Yang Temple both spoke. Although the 2 of them did not make a move, there was naturally a reason why Yin and Yang Temple could be ranked above the 3 great empires and 4 sacred domains. Huang Wei's Spirit Elder could no longer withstand the pressure and could only snort. He flipped his hand and took out a heavy treasure sword. This sword looked extremely simple. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary bronze sword. No one would associate it with the Huang Wei sacred sword. Spirit Supremacy Luo Ying handed over the joint attack formation to everyone. Even if the others present did not specialize in formations, everyone's comprehension was absolutely superb. They did not need to comprehend it all and could directly master it through a comprehensive study. Our powers are all different. If we attack without a purpose, it will instead affect each other. We only need to channel our power into the Royal Might Sacred Sword through the formation. Spirit Sovereign Luo Ying explained. Everyone nodded one after another. Sovereign Might Spirit Sovereign unleashed a sword art, and the Sovereign Might Sacred Sword suddenly blossomed with a golden holy light that illuminated 10,000 miles. The brilliant holy aura made everyone feel an indescribable pressure. It was as if there was a voice in their hearts telling them, "Kneel." However, these people's wills were as firm as stone. They quickly stabilized their minds. There were also a few people who looked at the Royal Might Sacred Sword with covetous looks in their eyes. No one dared to waste any more time. The power of laws surged as they all focused on the Royal Might Sacred Sword. The Spirit Venerable Royal Aura slashed out and pierced the restriction. With a loud bang, everyone was forced back by a powerful vibration. No one paid any attention to this. They were all staring at the restriction. The restriction shook slightly, and he could vaguely see that the restriction had become thinner. It was really useful. Everyone's expression was shocked. However, the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura's expression turned cold. Everyone, this Venerable did not hide anything. However, some people did not use their full strength. Once this was said, everyone began to have their own ulterior motives. Some people might really be hiding their strength. After all, no one could put their full strength on the table. Being pointed out by the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura, no one's face looked good. However, not long ago, they had forced the spirit Venerable Royal Aura to take out his trump card. The spirit Venerable Royal Aura sneered. What? Did this Venerable say something wrong? With the Royal Might's sacred sword in hand, this Venerable knows best that Luo Ying and Wu Ji's strength is actually at the bottom among everyone. Even if you're slacking, there should be a limit. Also, this brother from the Pure Yang Temple, you transferred the least amount of power to the sacred sword. As the dignified Yin and Yang Temple, you can't only have this much ability, right? Being called out in public, the faces of the Spirit Venerable Luo Ying and Spirit Venerable Wu Ji turned ashen. They did not expect the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura to be able to sense everyone's strength so clearly. As for the person from the Pure Yang Temple, he was still a man of few words and did not say a single word. Continue. This Venerable does not wish for anyone to hide their strength. The breaking of the array continued. Everyone went all out and only took half an hour to break the restriction. The instant the array was broken, everyone could not help but sigh. Sure enough, only the Sacred Spirit Sword could deal with the restriction left behind by a Sacred Spirit expert. It was also at this moment that the power of star splendor suddenly bloomed. That majestic power seemed to directly break through this world, causing everyone to be shocked. It turned out that the star field map was not just a door. Even those stars contained boundless power. If they could absorb the power within, they might be able to take a step forward and advance to the connecting heaven realm. Everyone's heart began to heat up. Suddenly, the Spirit Venerable Luo Ying exclaimed, "Yeah, this aura is the expression of the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura, who had put away the sacred sword, also changed slightly." The Spirit Venerable Wu Ji's eyes were filled with doubt. It's the aura of the star race. Finally, the expert from the Pure Yang Temple said such a sentence. Everyone's expression turned cold. The star race could be said to be the taboo of taboos in the falling star continent. No one dared to casually mention it. But now, the people from the Pure Yang Temple actually said that the aura of the star race had appeared in the holy city. Moreover, looking at the expressions of the Spirit Venerable Luo Ying and the others, it seemed that they were not wrong. It was said that the holy city was built by the four saints. Why was there the power of the star race inside? They all had such doubts in their hearts, but at this time, no one cared about it. Chun Xian of the Northern Wei Empire directly rushed into the star field. He did not care about the star race. He did not care much about the door. He only wanted to get those stars. Of course, the others could not sit back and do nothing. The sword of the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura slashed down. This sword seemed ordinary, but when the sword fell, it instantly exploded. Sword splitting mountains and rivers. Chun Xian pointed out a finger, and a sword light suddenly rose up. Without any attributes, it was the purest sword light. It was also a sword light that displayed the power of the sword principle to the extreme. The long sword tore apart the sword move of the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura, but the light of the sword principle was still shining between heaven and earth and did not dissipate for a long time. The Spirit Venerable Royal Aura was slightly stunned, and the others who were about to snatch the stars also slowed down. It was because Chun Xian's strength was far beyond what they knew about him. As everyone knew, the Northern Wei Empire was the weakest among the three empires. Chun Xian, the guardian of the Northern Wei Empire, was at most at the middle level of the metaphysic realm. But the amazing sword move just now had broken the sword move of the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura. This move alone showed that his strength was not weaker than the Spirit Venerable Royal Aura. The water was getting muddier and muddier. Chapter 9:30. However, no matter how powerful Chun Xian was, it was impossible for him to suppress so many strong men in the metaphysical state. The sword radiance in Chun Xian's hand split into thousands of beams. The wind and clouds were surging between the sky and the earth. His Tao of the sword was the purest Tao of the sword in this world. There is only the sword, only the sword. Unlike Lung Shiqi, he didn't integrate the will of death and the law of reincarnation into his Tao of the sword, nor did he have the spiritual venerable spirit Qi that could break mountains and rivers. Chun Xian's pure Tao of the sword didn't have any attributes, but it had the sharpest sword intent in the world. This burst of sword intent forced people to temporarily avoid its sharp edge, but in this instant, he had already plucked a star. Then, he ignored everyone else and left the place. Some people wanted to stop him, but they realized there were still many stars, more than 20 of them. There was no need to fight with him for the one in Chun Xian's hand. However, someone stopped him. It was the strong man from the pure Yang Temple. "You can't leave," Chun Xian said in a hoarse voice. "There are so many stars. I'll only take one. Go away. Not even one less. You're courting death." Chun Xian unsheathed his sword. It was a strange long sword without a hilt. The pure extreme sword intense soared into the sky and shocked the gods with one strike. The strong man from the pure Yang Temple was surrounded by 9 suns that lit up the world. The whole space fragment was filled with dazzling light. There seemed to be a dragon's shadow in each of the suns. As he punched, the 9 dragons roared out and swept over the world. Chun Xian's shocking sword intent melted like snow in the spring. Such a commotion caused those Tongxian realm cultivators who had just started to fight for the stars to stop. The pure yang energy that surged towards them caused their breathing to stop, and the might that reached the heavens caused boundless waves to surge in their hearts. It was even more so for Chun Xian. He was facing the pure yang energy directly. At the moment, the pure yang energy had entered his body. There was a warm feeling in his body, but the energy damaged his meridians one after another. Puff! Chun Xian couldn't help but spit out blood. He said in shock that the reaching heaven state. The blue-robed man over there asked, "Who are you?" He only said 4 words, "Pure Yang, Sacred Master." Hearing these words, everyone was speechless. Who didn't know that you were the pure Yang, Sacred Master? You're just wasting your breath. The pure Yang Temple has not appeared in the world for thousands of years. As for Huangwei spiritual sovereign, he suddenly recalled that not long ago, he had mocked and ridiculed the pure Yang Sacred Master. Now that he thought about it, he felt a chill run down his spine. Lung Shiqi, who had seen all of this, did not care about this. Although he was surprised that the pure Yang Sacred Master was in the Ascension realm, he was already mentally prepared. What he cared about the most was what the pure Yang Sacred Master had said. Not one less. Lung Shiqi looked at the star chart again. Some of the brightest stars were moving slowly, roughly forming a portal. These stars will eventually become a portal. It's very likely to be the channel that the Lord of Samsara mentioned. The reason why the pure Yang Sacred Master had stopped Chun Xian was because he couldn't let a single star go missing. He actually knew about this. What kind of existence is the pure Yang Temple? He also remembered how Huangwei spiritual sovereign had mocked the pure Yang Sacred Master. At that time, the pure Yang Sacred Master had contributed the least. Now that he thought about it, it was probably because he had not appeared in the world for a long time and did not know how much power a Tongxian realm cultivator had. While everyone was still in shock, a figure appeared in the star chart like a ghost. More than half of the Tongxian realm cultivators did not notice his existence. Only 5 people in the crowd turned to look at him. That person simply waved his hand and took away a few stars. He laughed sinisterly and said, "So what if you're in the Ascension realm? When I refine the power of these stars, I'll definitely advance to the Ascension realm. At that time, I'll come and ask the pure Yang Sacred Master for advice." After that person finished speaking, his figure started to fade as if he was about to disappear. It's Night Demon. What a strange movement technique. He actually dares to provoke a Ascension realm cultivator. I'm afraid he hasn't lived long enough. Not necessarily. Night Demon cultivates the law of phantom. If he wants to escape, even an Ascension realm cultivator might not be able to catch him. The others immediately recognized this person. He was the last rogue cultivator among the original 13 Tongxian realm cultivators. This person could be said to be extremely daring. Normally, he would purposely provoke a few Tongxian realm cultivators. He relied on his invincible escape technique, and no one could do anything to him. He had formed many grudges. Seeing this, the pure Yang Sacred Master's expression did not change. He did not even have any plans to make a move. However, Lung Shiqi realized that the pure Yang Sacred Master was looking at him. It seemed like the Sacred Master had already seen through Lung Shiqi's strength and knew that he was definitely not in the Tongxian realm. Lung Shiqi naturally would not let Night Demon escape with the stars. Just as he was about to make a move, someone was faster than him. He was Tu Deng. Tu Deng took a step forward and appeared in front of Night Demon. His Buddha Dharma idol appeared and slammed out with his palm. Countless palm shadows descended, each of them having a physical form and each of them containing a shocking amount of power. The palm shadows sealed the space. Night Demon was shocked. Tu Deng's palm strength was far beyond what he could withstand. It even resembled the pure Yang Sacred Master's stance just now. Night Demon did not dare to take it head-on. His figure became dimmer, and he escaped into the void. He only wanted to escape. Who would have thought that Tu Deng would suddenly let out a loud shout? It was like a tangible sound wave. Everyone present felt that it was very normal, but in Yi Mei's ears, it was like a great bell exploding with a loud bang. Night Demon's figure paused, and his face turned pale. He felt that his soul was constantly twisting, as if it was about to split open. He knew that if he delayed any longer, he would definitely die. Night Demon made a prompt decision. He burned his soul and escaped into the void by force. Tu Deng put his palms together, and the golden Arhut avatar appeared behind him. A strong wave of energy burst out from his body. He sat on the ground and chanted scriptures. Instantly, everyone was shocked to find that the Arhut avatar behind him had started to split into thousands. There were not only Arhats, but also Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. All of them bowed to him. Million Buddhas greeting. Night Demon's figure was forced out of the void. He could not move under the pressure of the million Buddhas. As long as Tu Deng had the intention to kill, he could easily take his life right now. Everyone was stunned. First, there was Chun Xian and Jianjing. Then, there was the pure Yang Sacred Master. But now, this weirdly dressed, unknown person was also a reaching heaven state expert who had the ability to shock the heavens. It was unbelievable that two reaching heaven state cultivators had appeared. Originally, these mystic comprehending cultivators, especially the spiritual venerables from the four sacred spiritual region, thought that they were the main characters. Now that two mystic comprehending cultivators had appeared, it meant that they had completely lost the right to compete. At the end of the day, they were just insignificant characters. Chapter 9:31. Chun Xian attacked, and a pure Yang Sacred Master appeared. Night Demon attacked, and another Tu Deng appeared. Good heavens! Two reaching heaven states were just standing there in front of everyone. It seemed that whoever touched the star would attract reaching heaven state warriors. Who would dare to fight for it? Lung Shiqi pointed out a finger, and the power of death burst out, instantly penetrating Night Demon's head. The few stars he snatched away spun around and flew back into the sky. Night Demon was suppressed by the 10,000 Buddhas to the point that he couldn't resist at all. He died so easily. How could a Tongxian realm cultivator, whose name had shaken the world, die so easily? If the pure Yang Sacred Master's attack made everyone feel the power of a reaching heaven realm cultivator, then Tu Deng's attack made them feel the terror of a reaching heaven realm cultivator. Luo, Ing Spirit Sovereign, Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign, and the others who were scheming against each other just now felt that they were just like clowns jumping around. What fighting openly and secretly? What deceiving soldiers? In the face of absolute strength, everything was useless. Now, no one dared to fight for any of the stars. The mystic comprehending realm cultivators, who were usually high and mighty, stood there fearfully. They were afraid that the pure, young sacred master, or Tu Ding, would end up like Night Demon. The pure young sacred master looked at Tu Ding and said, "Your power is very strange. You are also very strong. You flatter me." Tu Ding only said 2 words, then stopped talking. The pure young sacred master looked at the starfield map and said, "The passage is about to open. If you want to go in, go in. However, no one knows whether the passage will be a blessing or a curse. No one can predict whether you will live or die." Everyone started to hesitate. Some of them had strong wills, while others started to waver. Very soon, spiritual venerable Wu Ji and Chun Xian of the Northern Wei Empire retreated one after another. Spiritual sovereign Wu Ji was the weakest in the 4 sacred spiritual region, and his presence was also the weakest. He didn't have a strong desire to go to another continent. Chun Xian had the heavy responsibility of protecting the Northern Wei Empire. If something happened to him, the Northern Wei Empire would change hands. Lung Shiqi transmitted his voice to Old Man Xiao. "Old Man, a reaching heaven realm cultivator has appeared. The passage must be very dangerous. The Thunderblaze Empire can't do without you. Why don't you not go in?" This old man has the same idea. "Let's go." "No, I want to go in." "What?" Old Man Xiao couldn't help but be surprised. In his mind, Lung Shiqi had infinite potential, and he might even break through the reaching heaven state in the future. There was no need for him to take risks. Lung Shiqi explained, "This Master Tuting is my good friend. With his protection, I won't be in much danger." Old Master Qiao remembered that after Night Demon was suppressed, it was Lung Shiqi who killed her. It seemed that what he said was true. Since there's a reaching heaven state expert protecting them, you can go in and explore. Who knows, you might be able to obtain some fated chances. However, you have to be extremely careful. Don't act rashly. Staying alive is the most important thing. Old Man Xiao warned him, then left. As for the Jade Forest, he still had an important mission. In the end, Wuma Yuanjia of the Starfall dynasty hesitated for a moment before leaving as well. Ingqinha still had not shown up. Perhaps something had really happened to her. He had to go and look for her. If Ingqinha died here, the burden of the Starfall dynasty would fall on his shoulders again. Coincidentally, the reaching heaven state experts from the 3 dynasties had all left. They were the fetters brought by the dynasties. They could also be considered burdens. No one looked down on the departure of these 5 people. After all, everyone had their own choices and paths. As the stars revolved, it didn't take long for the stars to form a portal, from which a peculiar aura flowed out. It was an aura that they had never felt on the Starfall continent. Everyone knew what was going on, but no one dared to make the first move. The pure young sacred master took a step forward and went through the portal. Tuting turned into a wisp of Buddhist light and followed him. Only after the 2 reaching heaven state experts went and did the rest of the people follow. This time, they weren't separated. When they went through the portal, they saw a strange and terrifying scene. What entered their eyes was a vast wasteland. Plants that they had never seen before grew everywhere. However, these plants were all withered. The ground was cracked. The wasteland and the aura of decay were everywhere. Other than that, there were spatial cracks scattered in the sky and all around the wasteland. Those present were either reaching heaven or mystic realm experts. They could easily see thousands of miles away. This scene was everywhere. They couldn't confirm anything else, but at least they knew that they were no longer on the Starfall continent. The old beggar suddenly said, "Look, those spatial cracks are constantly twisting. They will even appear and disappear for no reason. Once they encounter them, reaching heaven state experts might be able to save themselves. As for mystic realm experts, they can only pray for themselves." Spirit Sovereign Luo Ing had a strange expression. Although what the old beggar said was true, the 2 reaching heaven state experts had yet to speak. He wasn't afraid of causing trouble. The more Lung Shiqi looked at the old beggar, the more he couldn't see through him. He secretly sent a message to Tuting. Tuting turned around and asked, "Although I haven't seen many experts in the world, I have heard of them. I have never heard of you before. May I know your name? The old beggar smiled, revealing 2 rows of yellow teeth. There seemed to be some stains on them, making him look extremely sloppy. Old beggar, how can I have a name? Everyone calls me old beggar. I was just lucky enough to cultivate a bit. Lucky? No one believed him. If he was lucky enough to cultivate to such a realm, there wouldn't be so few experts in the world. Seeing the old beggar's stubbornness, Tooting also gave up on probing. At this moment, the door they came in from suddenly closed, completely cutting off their path of retreat. This increased the pressure in everyone's hearts. Don't panic. Since we are here, let's go in and explore. The old beggar had become more talkative after coming here. No matter what, I still suggest that we work together to ensure everyone's safety. This suggestion was naturally approved by all the Mystic Realm experts. The key was whether the 2 reaching heaven states were willing to bring them along. The pure Yang Sacred Master and Tooting both nodded silently. Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign and the others relaxed. If they could follow these 2 reaching heaven states, they could at least avoid a lot of danger. Lung Shiqi, Tudong, the pure Yang Sacred Master, the old beggar, the blue-robed man, the disfigured youth, Luo Ing Spirit Sovereign, and Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign began to explore the interior of the wasteland. As there were spatial cracks everywhere, they didn't choose to fly. Instead, they relied on their movement techniques to move steadily on the ground. After a long time, the scenery of the wasteland remained the same. No one encountered any danger. Until the second day, they discovered something that overturned everyone's knowledge. Chapter 932. Everyone saw a skeleton. In this empty space, there was a skeleton lying inexplicably. No matter how they looked at it, it was extremely strange. Everyone went forward to take a look, full of vigilance. They found that the skeleton was very complete, and every bone was golden in color. More importantly, it was clearly a corpse, but it was still emitting traces of holy aura. This was the skeleton of a Holy Spirit expert. The skeleton fell in the opposite direction from where they came from, which meant that this former Holy Spirit expert's goal was the direction they came from. That door. Many guesses appeared in everyone's mind, and everyone guessed one possibility. This Holy Spirit expert wanted to return to the Falling Star continent through the door, but he died halfway. Legend said that this should be the passage to leave the Falling Star continent, but in fact, the space they were in now was no longer the Falling Star continent. They had waited for a long time and spent a lot of twists and turns to enter here. Then why did someone choose to come back and die halfway? Even a Holy Spirit expert recognized by the will of heaven and earth had died here. Then what about them? A feeling of uneasiness rose in their hearts. The old beggar boldly stepped forward and flipped over the corpse. Immediately after, a cry of surprise was heard. There are words here. Lung Shiqi looked over, and there were indeed a few lines of words under the skeleton. The handwriting was very messy, and the depth was different. It looked a bit like it was written before death. Lies. A big lie. It's all a scam. Run, don't come over. It was just a few short lines, but they were filled with hatred and despair. Just what had he gone through to make a Saint Spirit expert feel such despair? Up until now, everyone felt that things had already gone beyond their expectations. Was the passage of thoughts really just a lie, a scam? The old beggar lifted one of the skeleton's arms and said, this person's left hand has 6 finger bones. Is there a Holy Spirit expert with this feature in the Falling Star continent? Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign's expression changed, and he immediately ran to the old beggar's side, carefully looking at the finger bones of the skeleton. The more he looked, the bigger his eyes became. Then he said with complicated emotions, He is very likely to be the Saint Venerable from tens of thousands of years ago, my ancestor, and the last Saint Spirit expert of the Royal Prestige Spirit region. According to the records left behind by our ancestors, this ancestor left the Falling Star continent through the passage in the Holy City. He said that he was going to seek greater power. Who would have thought that he would end up like this? Everyone's expression changed. Huang Wei's spiritual elder recognized the owner of this skeleton, which proved that this person was indeed from the falling star continent. Then what did he mean by those words he left behind? What kind of terrifying existence was at the end of this tunnel? Moreover, if it was only dangerous, he couldn't possibly call it a scam. Now, what should we do? Spirit Supremacy Luo Ying asked. She was already starting to regret her decision. As a Tongxian realm cultivator, she used to be a powerful figure on the falling star continent. But now, she was being suppressed by 2 Tongxian realm cultivators and the corpse of a Holy Spirit expert. She really had a feeling that her future was uncertain. Just as everyone was bewildered, the Pure Yang Sacred Master said in a deep voice, "The entrance has already been closed. We have nowhere to go." As for continuing forward, Lung Shiqi continued, "The Pure Yang Sacred Master is right. Everyone here is also a top-notch expert of the falling star continent. Right now, the only way is to continue forward. Otherwise, who can guarantee how long we can survive in this place filled with spatial cracks? Also, did you really not notice that the spiritual energy here is unusually scarce? Not only spiritual energy, but the origin energy of heaven and earth is also pitifully scarce. As for the power of laws, it is far more difficult to trigger here than in the falling star continent." Everyone else had naturally noticed this, but no one cared. They were existences who had grasped the laws of heaven and earth. Mere spiritual energy was nothing to them. However, when they heard Lung Shiqi's words and tried to trigger the laws of heaven and earth, they were shocked to find that the laws of heaven and earth were indeed much thinner here. This meant that their battle strength would be greatly reduced here. This space was like heaven and earth compared to the secret realm they were in before. Could this be what the previous Huang Wei spiritual elder wanted to express? "Let's go." The Pure Yang Sacred Master took a step forward. This was like a signal. His back looked somewhat imposing, and the others followed his footsteps one after another. In a place like this where unknown dangers existed, following a heaven completion realm expert was naturally the best choice. Huang Wei's spiritual elder kept the corpse and followed. No one coveted the corpse. After all, it was his ancestor. Actually, there was a voice in the Pure Yang Sacred Master's heart that was guiding him to the depths. It was as if there was something extremely important to him inside. The 8 of them chose to continue forward. They walked even more cautiously. However, not long after, their footsteps stopped again. This was because they discovered another corpse in front of them. It was still a golden skeleton, and it still had the aura of a Holy Spirit. This was the corpse of another Holy Spirit expert. This Holy Spirit expert did not have any special characteristics. No one recognized who he was, and only left a single word: regret. Just by looking at this word, everyone could feel his remorse. Everyone's hearts became heavier. This was already the second one. Would they encounter even more if they continued onwards? There weren't many Holy Spirit experts in the falling star continent. In the past hundreds of thousands of years, there were probably only a few hundred. After all, the closer one was to the present, the fewer Holy Spirit experts there would be. 1 corpse, 2 corpses, 3. As everyone went deeper into the wasteland, they discovered more and more corpses. Along the way, the Pure Yang Sacred Master also collected a corpse. The others did not pay much attention to it. Perhaps it was an ancestor of the Pure Yang Temple. The others did not rashly collect the corpse. After all, they were all Holy Spirit experts in the past. Who knew if they would leave behind any methods? This was not something they could bear. Not far away, another 2 corpses entered their sights. The difference was that these 2 corpses were not lying down, but sitting cross-legged on the ground. Everyone looked carefully. One of them was wearing a purple robe and a jade crown. The other was wearing a pitch-black battle armor. There were countless strange beast runes on the battle armor, covering his entire body. The 8 of them were puzzled. At the same time, they were extremely vigilant. Shortly after, an inexplicable caw-caw sound was heard. The 2 corpses actually moved. It was also at this time that the plaza of the Lingbei County's holy city was filled with hundreds of sky origin experts. They had finally arrived. They had also discovered the secret of the 4 stone pillars. Many of the people present were from the 4 sacred regions. It did not take long for them to find a way to enter the holy city. Hundreds of sky origin experts poured into the secret realm. Once they entered the secret realm, they naturally began to wantonly plunder all kinds of treasures. Yushu from the Extreme Blade Hall chuckled. What a good place to kill and rob. I wonder how many sky origin experts will fall here. Brother Lung is really ruthless. Chapter 9:33. There were 5 types of people in the sky origin realm who entered the holy city. The Thunderblaze dynasty, the Starfall dynasty, the Northern Way dynasty, the various sects, and the rogue cultivators. The experts of the Thunderblaze dynasty's Hall of Worship had already entered and plundered more than half of the secret realm. Among the remaining people, there were Lung Shichi's targets. They were the experts of the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Way dynasty's Hall of Worship. As the top fighting force of each dynasty, they were also the pillars of the dynasty. If these experts died in the holy city, the overall strength of the 2 dynasties would drop by 70 to 80%. Although not all of the sky origin stage cultivators were here, and some of the important places needed to be guarded, those who were scattered all over the place wouldn't be able to do much. Not far from Yushu, there were 2 experts from the Northern Way Empire. Coincidentally, they were in the vicinity and soon met each other. Nether Chi surrounded Yushu, and 4 figures walked out. They were Mingyu Ghost Emperor, Delta Orgi, Wu Jin Ghost Emperor, Wu Xiang, King Pingding, Xiongming, King Yinluo, Eunuch Gao, and King Bian Sheng, Hateful Blade. Hateful Blade did not enter the passage with Lung Shichi. First of all, he had just entered the Tongxian realm. His strength could be said to be at the top of the continent, but compared to the Tongxian realm, he was still too far away. Not only did Hateful Blade have to guard the Blood Robe Pavilion, but he also had to kill the experts of the other dynasties. A few people walked out of the Nether Chi with murderous intent and instantly surrounded the 2 people. The 2 immediately felt the gloomy chi around them, and several dense, killing intent enveloped their bodies. Hateful Blade's cold gaze, which pierced through their souls, made them lose the desire to fight. Everyone, is there a misunderstanding? There are no treasures here. No, I still have some good things on me. I'll give them all to you. The 2 were so scared that they almost knelt down and begged for mercy. The dignity of the sky origin realm was thrown out of the window. The battle ended very quickly, leaving behind only 2 broken bones. The whole process only took a short while. Hateful Blade did not make a move, treating it as a training for the younger generation. Lung Shichi had already informed them through the Mansion of the Dead that there were only Wuma Yuanjia and the other 3 mystic comprehending cultivators in the arcane realm. Among them, Old Master Qiao was still on their side. Most likely, spiritual Venerable Wu Ji would not get involved in Dynasty's battle. Therefore, as long as they avoided Wuma Yuanjia and Chenexayan, they could do whatever they wanted. Thus, a cold and sharp knife appeared in the mystic realm. They did not explore the ruins, nor did they fight for treasures. Instead, they killed everyone they saw. It did not take long for news of their whereabouts to spread, causing many people to feel uneasy. However, after careful investigation, they discovered that the people who died were all from the Northern Way dynasty and the Starfall dynasty. Was this a coincidence, or was it intentional? No matter what the situation was, the experts of the 2 empires all felt that they were in danger. They stopped looking for treasures and started to group up to save themselves. Even so, there were still people dying tragically. Yushu and the others had actually split up. Once they discovered their target, they would use the underworld to instantly gather. Hence, their whereabouts could be said to be elusive, making it impossible to guard against them. Wuma Yuanjia and Chen Xian naturally knew that someone was assassinating their experts. They were immediately furious. It was obvious that it was the Thunderfire dynasty's doing. The two of them even wanted to personally slaughter the experts of the Thunderfire dynasty. However, Old Master Qiao had not joined the sect. With him around, it was impossible for them to do so. Therefore, Wuma Yuanjia and Chun Xian worked together for the first time. They directly went to Old Master Qiao and suspected that he had done something secretly. At first, Old Master Qiao was very confused when he learned about this. He did not give such an order. After asking around, he found that the heavenly origin realm experts of the Thunderfire dynasty did not receive any orders from His Majesty. This meant that the assassins were not from the Hall of Worship. That was strange. Those who died were all experts from the other two empires. At present, roughly half of the experts of the two empires had died. To them, this was definitely a huge loss. The Starfall dynasty had a deep foundation and could barely bear it. However, the Northern Wei dynasty only had less than 10 heavenly origin realm experts left. It was a pity to see them like this. The heavy losses of the two empires were naturally great news for the Thunderfire dynasty. After they left the Holy City, the Thunderfire dynasty's authority on the continent would rise. Wuma Yuanjia questioned, Old Master Qiao, did you allow your subordinates to slaughter the experts of our Hall of Worship? Chen Xian did not say anything. However, sword light flashed in his eyes. It was as if he would attack at any moment. For the Northern Wei dynasty, he was willing to take only one star. For the Northern Wei dynasty, he was willing to give up the opportunity to join the sect. However, it did not take long for more than half of the experts they worshipped to die. This completely infuriated Chun Xian. Old Master Qiao was overjoyed. However, he put on a solemn expression and said, Why do you say that, Brother Wuma? You should know that the people of the Thunderfire dynasty have been tightly gathered since the beginning. No one acted alone. This is obvious to all. Moreover, the people who entered the Holy City this time are all famous. There are countless people who know them. If anyone acts alone, they will definitely be recognized. Even if their appearance can be hidden, their cultivation base and spiritual techniques cannot be hidden. As far as I know, the people who slaughtered your subordinates all cultivated extreme techniques. They are definitely not from the Thunderfire dynasty. I reckon that the reason they did this is to sow discord and make the three of us fight in the Holy City. The most important thing now is not to question the Thunderfire dynasty, but to dig out those people as soon as possible and skin them alive. There were no loopholes in Old Master Qiao's words. First, he removed himself from suspicion. Then, he pointed the finger at someone else. In the end, his face was filled with righteous indignation. It really isn't you? Wuma Yuanjia stared into Old Master Qiao's eyes. It was as if he wanted to see through him. However, he could not see anything strange. Chen Xian also started to waver. Just as the few of them were in a deadlock, a shocking saber light slashed at them from the horizon. The saber light was like a black waterfall. The chi of the netherworld corroded the heaven and earth. This was extreme saber light. It was as if it could destroy the world. Wuma Yuanjia, Chen Xian, and Old Master Qiao all frowned. Where did this metaphysical realm cultivator come from? Chun Xian, who was filled with anger, stabbed his sword. The dazzling sword light pierced the sky. The pure sword intent was extremely beautiful. In everyone's eyes, the heaven and earth seemed to have lost their color. This stunning sword cut through the netherworld saber light. The few of them finally saw the attacker. It was a man covered in a gorgeous black robe. The chi of the netherworld surged around him, making him look like a demon. Who are you? Did you kill my subordinates? Chen Xian asked coldly. The man raised a short saber in his hand and said, Underworld, King Biancheng. Chapter 9:34. Mansion of the Dead? What kind of force was that? It was definitely an extraordinary force to have a Tongxian realm expert, but they had never heard of it. Did you kill my men? Wuma Yuanjia asked coldly. Yes, Hateful Blade admitted right away. Wuma Yuanjia's face darkened. Dying. Black water appeared in front of him, and the boundless black water vital, Qi, turned into a huge whirlpool, swallowing everything like a black hole. At the same time, the ground glowed with green light. Huge trees rose from the ground and turned into countless tentacles that grabbed at Hateful Blade. Wuma Yuanjia had cultivated both the water and wood laws of heaven and earth. Chun Exine unsheathed his sword and was about to attack, but Hateful Blade said to Old Man Xiao, "Are you going to just stand there and watch? Someone asked me to hunt down the experts of the two dynasties, so your Thunderflame dynasty should do the same." Old Man Xiao hesitated for a moment, then stood in front of Chun Exine. "Are you really going to stop me? We're just doing our own thing." The surrounding Sky Origin Realm experts stepped back. The battle between the four Tongshin Realm experts could break out at any time, and they didn't want to get involved. Just as the four of them were confronting each other, a figure appeared in the Nether Temple outside the sacred city. The figure looked exactly like Lung Shiqi. His real body couldn't appear here at this time. It was just a doppelganger. He opened the door, looked at the tombs, and murmured, "It's time for you to see the light of day again." In the Zhuge family, Zhuge Yun and Zhuge Pu were kneeling on the ground. Similarly, Lung Shiqi's doppelganger struck out countless spells to connect the stars. Every star had an expert of the Zhuge family in deep slumber. It's finally time for the stars to shine again. In the far north wastelands, countless demon beasts gathered together. At the front, 3 people looked out of the wastelands, their eyes full of killing intent and desire. Another doppelganger of Lung Shiqi suddenly appeared near them. The Saint City has appeared. Now, more than 90% of the Heaven Origin Realm cultivators on the continent have entered the Saint City. The Thunderflame dynasty has also transferred all their forces to the Starfall dynasty. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Demon Venerable Wind-Splitting laughed wildly. "Children, let's fight our way out." All of a sudden, thousands of demonic beasts rushed towards the Northern Way dynasty like a tidal wave. The human race had set up 2 barriers to guard against the demon race in the Northern Wastelands. The first barrier was the Imperial Beast Lodge and the Blood Beast sect. The second was the Northern Way Empire. Due to the appearance of a sacred city, most of the experts in the world had gone to Lingbei County. Only the Northern Way dynasty had the fewest people because they were afraid that the demons would take advantage of this time to invade. The Northern Way Empire had even mobilized 100,000 soldiers to guard the northern border. Coupled with the presence of 2 top sects, it would be difficult to break through these 2 barriers unless the demons came out in full force. However, on this day, the demonic beasts really came out in full force. The first to bear the brunt were the Imperial Beast Lodge and the Blood Beast sect. If the demonic beasts hated ordinary spirit cultivators, then they hated the people of these 2 sects 1,000 times, 10,000 times. For thousands of years, these 2 sects have been capturing and killing countless demonic beasts. They wished that they could tear all the disciples of these 2 sects into pieces. The 3 demon venerables acted separately. Demon Venerable Wind-Splitting led several demon kings and tens of thousands of demonic beasts to attack the Blood Beast sect. In recent years, the Blood Beast sect had been declining day by day. Last time, in the Northern Way Empire's myriad spirit gathering, they had lost a Sky Origin Realm expert, including an expert like Xiepingyu. After that, the Blood Beast sect had been suppressed by the Imperial Beast Lodge. Sect Master Situ Huanshu's hair had turned white in the past 10 years. It was obvious that his life was not easy. This time, when the sacred city opened, the 2 sects did not send many people. Their Blood Beast sect only sent a Sky Origin Realm expert. Not only did they have to guard against the invasion of the demonic beasts, but they also had to guard against the Imperial Beast Lodge. On this day, Sidu Huanshu was dealing with the sect's affairs. Suddenly, an earth-shattering beast roar resounded through the sky. Even the ground trembled a few times. Immediately after, countless demonic beasts roared continuously. It was so loud that even the deaf could hear them. Situ Huanshu was shocked. In a flash, he arrived outside the sect. What he saw was a dense group of demonic beasts charging at him with scarlet eyes. Above the group of demonic beasts, there were more than 10 demonic beasts in human form. They were all level 7 demonic beasts. The most terrifying one was the burly man in the lead. His demonic chi was almost solid. Just one look from him was enough to make Situ Huanshu's breathing stop. That was a level 8 demon venerable. On the other side, Nine Leaf personally came to the Imperial Beast Lodge. When she was transcending her tribulation in the demonic Miasma mountain range, the blood beast sex Siepingyu and the 1,000-legged beast king Nanmin Yun of the Imperial Beast Lodge went to capture her. As a result, her newly cultivated level 7 demonic body was destroyed. When Lung Shichi came to the Northern Wei Empire to participate in the Myriad Spirit Gathering, he secretly helped Nine Leaf get rid of the blood beast sex Siepingyu. Now, the only enemy left in Nine Leaf's heart was the Imperial Beast Lodge. And this time, only Nine Leaf was attacking the Imperial Beast Lodge. One person was more than enough to deal with them. A level 8 demon venerable descended. That majestic demonic chi swept through heaven and earth. The wind and clouds changed. Within 1,000 miles, it was filled with a terrifying demonic wind. Nine Leaf didn't say anything and directly revealed her demon venerable true form. The several hundred feet soul leaving Scorpion was as terrifying as a black cloud. She opened her bloody mouth and released a formless sound wave. In an instant, all the disciples in the Imperial Beast Lodge couldn't help but cover their ears. Before they knew what was happening, they were already bleeding from their 7 orifices and died. Wisps of souls floated out and were all sucked into her mouth. In just a few blinks of an eye, there were only a few dozen people left in the huge Imperial Beast Lodge. The lowest cultivation of these people was at the unity of heaven and man realm. Only this realm could barely hold on. As for the remaining people, they were all seriously injured. Nine Leaf saw a familiar figure in the crowd and smiled eerily. Nan Mingyun, do you still remember me? You're that soul-leaving Scorpion. Nan Mingyun recognized Nine Leaf, and his eyes almost popped out. Not only did that great demon who had self-detonated back then not die, but it had also become a level 8 demon venerable and came to seek revenge. Other than Nan Mingyun, there were 2 other heavenly origin realm cultivators in the Imperial Beast Lodge. They said in shock and anger, "You actually provoked such a terrifying enemy for the sect. The sect has been destroyed. How are we going to explain to our ancestors?" Enough. So what if it's a demon venerable? It's not like there aren't any demon venerables in the extreme northern wastelands. Soul-leaving Scorpion. Don't you think that silver-winged demon venerable and wind-breaking demon venerable haven't attacked the Imperial Beast Lodge and Blood Beast sect for so many years? Is it because they're not strong enough? It can be said that as long as any one of them comes, they can easily destroy the Imperial Beast Lodge like you. But what about after that? Only destruction awaits your demon race. Chapter 9:35. Clap, clap, clap. Nine Leaf turned back into his human form and clapped his hands. Well said. But why don't you think about why I came back and slaughtered your Imperial Beast abode? Is it really just for revenge? Maybe the Blood Beast sect will end up like you. Not only you, but also the Northern Wei Empire. What? A possibility appeared in their minds, and they all turned pale with fright. The demon race finally couldn't hold back and killed their way out of the northern wastelands. They also remembered that most of the experts in the Northern Wei Empire had left due to the opening of the Holy City. Maybe Chenexayan had left as well. Then, who would stop the demon race's 3-rank, 8 demon venerables and countless demon beasts? The 3 of them could already see the Northern Wei Empire turning into a river of blood. However, this was their last thought, because in the next moment, their heads were gone. The demon race's last and largest group was led by the silver-winged demon venerable. They directly broke through the Northern Wei Empire's 100,000 soldiers and killed their way into the Northern Wei Empire. These demon beasts didn't kill too many ordinary people. Instead, they rushed towards the Northern Wei Empire's imperial capital like a tide. When Emperor Wei Xuandi heard the news, countless demon beasts were only 1,000 miles away from the imperial capital. According to the speed of the demon race, they would reach the imperial capital in 1 or 2 days. Emperor Wei Xuandi was scared out of his wits. Currently, there were only a dozen Sky Origin Realm experts in the Imperial Hall of Worship. There were also a few who were guarding the other borders. It was too late to call them back. What made him feel the most helpless was that Shun Xian was not here. Without Shun Xian, the mystic comprehending realm expert, the Northern Wei Empire had no ability to resist the rank 8 demon venerables. The moment the war started, they were destined to lose. He sat on the dragon, throne dispiritedly. Pass down the decree. Abandon the imperial capital and gather all forces to escape to the Starfall dynasty. It was impossible to defend the imperial capital and the Northern Wei Empire. The only thing he could do was to preserve the power of the imperial capital. Even if the Northern Wei Empire was gone, they would still have a place to stand. The Starfall dynasty's emperor, Ing Kongji, rubbed his forehead. The emperor had a lot of troubles recently. Some high-ranking officials of the Starfall dynasty's 48 counties were assassinated at the same time. One had to know that although those people's cultivation was not high, they had many experts protecting them. How could they die just like that? It wouldn't have been a big deal if it was just 1 or 2 states. But the problem was that the same thing had happened in all 48 states. Kongji instantly knew that there must be a conspiracy behind this, and there were very few people or forces in the world who could do such a thing. The Bloodcloak Pavilion, one of the 7 absolutes in the Starfall continent, had to be the organization with the strongest assassination ability. However, the Bloodcloak Pavilion was located far away in the Thunderblaze dynasty. They could not reach the Starfall dynasty at all. Thinking of this, Kongji's expression froze. No, the Thunderfire dynasty's king of the West, Lung Shiqi, is the pavilion master of the Blood Clothing Pavilion. The Blood Clothing Pavilion has most likely been recruited by the Thunderfire dynasty. Perhaps he is the one who sent a large number of assassins to infiltrate the various provinces and counties. But it is impossible for the Bloodcloak Pavilion to infiltrate the 48 provinces and counties without being detected by the intelligence network of our dynasty in a short period of time, unless this has been planned for a long time. This was not the biggest headache for him. What was even more troublesome was that as long as there was someone to fill the vacancy, they would still be assassinated again. In other words, whoever sat in this position would die. If that was the case, who would dare to take the position? However, once these positions were vacant, many things would become chaotic. For a short period of time, the situation could still be barely maintained. But if this continued, the various provinces and counties would be thrown into chaos. Not only were the high officials of the various provinces and counties killed, even the military was assassinated. The military was not a place that anyone could casually approach. But even under the heavy guard, there were still people killed. What was detestable was that the assassins were not the generals with military power, but the mid-level generals. As the generals leading the army, it was impossible for them to do everything by themselves. They were only the ones who gave orders. The ones who were truly in charge were the mid-level generals. Once they died, even if there was someone to replace them, it would still cause a lot of chaos. It would even shake the morale of the army and make them uneasy. This series of events was finally delivered to Kongji. He angrily slammed the table. Most of the experts of the Consecration Hall have gone to the Holy City. Otherwise, if a few of them were to be sent out, these rascals would not be so rampant. Although there were still more than 20 Sky Origin Stage experts in the Consecration Hall, half of them were guarding the Dragon Vein. They could not afford to lose them. As for the rest, they were either in seclusion or outside. Only 2 or 3 of them could still be used. Unfortunately, it was just a drop in the bucket. Speaking of the Holy City, Kongji's eyes flashed. He reread a large number of memorials and found that the assassinations were all started after the Holy City appeared. That was to say, someone might have known that the Holy City would appear and that all the experts in the world would go to Lingbei County. Thus, they set up a trap in advance and waited for the Holy City to appear before taking action. For some reason, Inkongji suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. At this moment, in the Thunderfire Dynasty's imperial palace, Emperor Lei Haoyan was wearing battle armor and holding the golden dragon spear in his hand. He was standing at the entrance of the main hall, full of fighting spirit. The civil and military officials were standing on both sides, as if they were waiting for something. Suddenly, a stream of light shot over from the horizon. Lei Haoyan stretched out his hand and grabbed it. Immediately, a giant hand of thunder condensed and caught the stream of light. When the stream of light dissipated, it was actually a jade slip. Lei Haoyan shouted, "The time has come. Commander, are you ready for the expedition to the west?" Emo Xianghua stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, the military supplies have already been secretly sent to the West Province. We can guarantee that nothing will go wrong." "Very good. It's been 10 years. We've been preparing for 10 years just for this day." 10 years. In these 10 years, the Lung Shiqi had not only been cultivating, but also preparing to attack the Starfall dynasty. The Thunderfire dynasty had 400,000 mercenaries. These 400,000 soldiers were not at the level of the Great Moon Kingdom. Each of them was definitely an elite soldier and was equipped with the best weapons of the Thunderfire dynasty. However, these soldiers were usually scattered around the border. If they wanted to attack the Starfall dynasty, they naturally had to mobilize all of them. However, mobilizing hundreds of thousands of soldiers would cause too much of a commotion. The spies of the Starfall dynasty could easily detect it. Therefore, the Lung Shiqi used 10 years to secretly send the 400,000 soldiers and countless supplies into the West Province. On the surface, the Thunderfire dynasty's 4 main armies were still there. In fact, these were all for show. They were all new soldiers. The true elites had already been sent to the West Province. At the same time, the West Province had also taken out 150,000 elite soldiers after 10 years of cultivation. The 550,000 soldiers were ready to attack. As long as the order was given, they could attack the Starfall dynasty at any time. Lei Haoyan pointed his spear and shouted, "Let's fight." Chapter 9:36. Lung Shiqi, who was deep in the mysterious passage, received news from Nine Leave and his past incarnation. He knew that his plan, which had been laid out for 10 years, had been fully launched. The demon race's invasion of the Northern Wei dynasty was a sure thing. There would be no accidents. The Thunderfire dynasty and the West Continent's joint attack on the Starfall dynasty had some hidden dangers. Perhaps the border could be easily broken through, but the Starfall dynasty was simply too big. It was impossible to slowly attack the city. If that happened, the war would drag on. The Thunderfire dynasty's foundation was far inferior to the Starfall dynasty's. It would only become more and more disadvantageous if it dragged on. Therefore, in order to ensure that they could take down the Starfall dynasty in a short period of time, Lung Shiqi directly used the trump cards of the Nether Temple and the Zhuge family. Those experts were divided into several groups to attack the various armies of the Starfall dynasty. It was just that they were not all in place yet. When the Starfall dynasty wanted to mobilize their forces to fight against the Thunderfire dynasty, they would find that there were no more soldiers available. Lung Shiqi didn't have too much energy to worry about this. He had already made all the arrangements he needed to make. Even if something unexpected happened, he still had 3 reaching heaven states on his side. As long as they were safe, nothing could go wrong. Right now, he was most concerned about the 2 Saint Spirit corpses in front of him. With a few light cracking sounds, the 2 corpses slowly opened their eyes. In an instant, Dao rhymes circulated and demonic qi filled the sky. The power was so great that the nearby spatial cracks were all repelled. Lung Shiqi and the others retreated one after another with astonishment on their faces. This scene made their hair stand on end. 2 existences that should have been dead for tens of thousands of years could still have such power. Could it be that these 2 Saint Spirit experts were not dead? However, Lung Shiqi immediately discovered that the hands and feet of these 2 people were golden bones. They were obviously dead. Immediately after, A layer of faint saint light lingered on the bones. It was as if it was real, and it looked like skin. Everyone looked at the two people warily. One of them, wearing demonic armor, spoke. His voice was like two stones rubbing against each other. It was abnormally ear-piercing. How many years has it been? We finally see a spirit cultivator again. Another person wearing a Taoist robe said, "That scam has not been seen through yet." As expected, it attracted another group of people. There are only a few reaching heaven states, but there are even metaphysical states. How could the falling star continent be reduced to such a state? I thought I could recover more of my strength. What a pity. The two of them seemed to be talking to themselves, but also seemed to be communicating with each other. They did not put Lung Shiqi and the others in their eyes at all. They were like fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Everyone was puzzled. These two people were neither human nor ghost, but they still had traces of Saint Aura on them. They did not know what they were. At this moment, the pure Yang sacred master said in disdain, "You are merely two remnant souls. How dare you be so arrogant?" The gazes of the two people instantly locked onto the pure Yang sacred master. Two blood-red lights flashed in their empty eyes. Soon after, boundless killing intent covered the sky. An ant-like junior of the Heaven Ascension stage actually dares to bark in front of this saint. It seems that the Starfall continent really has no successor. The demon's supremacy was surrounded by raging demonic flames. Although he did not have a saber in his hand, he used his palm as a saber. Wherever the saber landed, it would be a boundless demonic domain. The other person struck out with his palm. Boundless Taoist connotation filled the air and instantly formed a strange array that strangled all powers. The strength of the two people's attacks far exceeded that of a reaching heaven state. A golden Arhut Dharma idol appeared behind Tu Deng. When he punched out, heaven and earth seemed to tremble and the void cracked. It could be said that this was the limit of strength. The power of Buddhism should be extremely effective against demonic techniques. However, such a powerful punch only caused the demonic domain to tremble slightly. The pure Yang sacred master transformed into a huge sun and shone brightly. It did not have the power to shake the heavens, but the light was like the sun dispelling the shadows, causing the demonic domain to gradually dissipate. These two people's techniques had the ability to restrain demonic aura. The two of them worked together and barely blocked the demonic domain. But what about the other side? Luo Ying spirit supremacy and Huang Wei spirit supremacy did not even have the qualifications to interfere. The others were also in the metaphysical state. Were they going to die here? At this moment, the old beggar spat a mouthful of saliva to the side and muttered, "I haven't fought for a long time. I wonder if I've become rusty." As he spoke, a majestic power of earth erupted. Instantly, the ground churned as if something was about to break out of the ground. Indeed, two gigantic hands that reached the heavens shattered the ground and emerged from the ground. Those hands were emitting an extremely dense aura of the laws of earth. Every pattern on the palms could be seen clearly, especially the threads that were constantly sparkling. Those were the threads of laws. The two gigantic hands suddenly clapped together, as if they wanted to smash the two corpses into pieces. However, they were firmly suppressed by the profound Taoist connotation and could not advance even an inch. At the same time, the blue-robed man snorted. Suddenly, waves appeared in the blue sea between heaven and earth. In the blink of an eye, this wasteland had turned into a vast ocean. Huge waves surged and churned, drowning the world. The disfigured youth shook his head. However, the demonic aura around him surged. Behind him, the phantom of a strange beast slowly appeared. The strange beast opened its bloody mouth and swallowed the river of stars, as if it could swallow everything in this world. Of the three people who suddenly attacked, the old beggar blocked the Taoist connotation array. The blue-robed man's blue sea tore a hole in it. Finally, the ancient strange beast's devouring power finally shattered the Taoist connotation array. The three people formed a silent, tacit understanding when they attacked. However, Tu Deng and the pure Yang Sacred Master could only barely block the demonic domain. At this moment, tens of thousands of sword rays shot up. Instantly, netherworld chi filled the sky. Every sword ray contained the strange power of the laws of reincarnation and condensed into a sword net that covered the sky. The sword net fell and shattered the boundless demonic domain. Lung Shiqi's eyes shone as he scanned the old beggar and the other two. Needless to say, these three were definitely genuine heavenly completion realm cultivators. Furthermore, they were heavenly completion realm cultivators who had cultivated for countless years. Their strength was probably even deeper than Meng Tianzong's. No wonder Meng Tianzong had specifically warned him before he came that there were definitely other heavenly completion realm cultivators hidden in this world, and that he had to be extremely careful. 3 heavenly completion realm cultivators had suddenly appeared. In addition to the pure Yang Sacred Master and Tu Deng, there were 5 of them. He could only say that they had hidden themselves deeply. What made Lung Shiqi feel strange was that this was the first time he had seen a Dao technique in this world. It turned out that even in a different world, there might be a similar power system. It was just that this Dao technique had not been passed down. Lung Shiqi was not the only one who was shocked. The old beggar and the others also looked at each other. Clearly, they did not expect that there would be so many heavenly completion realm cultivators besides them. If not for the 2 living beings' corpses, who knew how long they would have hidden. The disfigured youth looked at Lung Shiqi with a strange gaze. No one knew what he was thinking. The ones who were the most shocked were naturally Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign and Luo Ying Spirit Sovereign. The battle here was not something they were qualified to participate in, so they immediately retreated. However, as they retreated, their minds were completely blank. What kind of situation was this? Not only were there heavenly completion realm cultivators who had disappeared from the Falling Star continent for a long time, there were a total of 6 of them. I'm afraid I'm not dreaming. Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign even turned his head and asked, Luo Ying, don't tell me you're also a heavenly completion realm cultivator? Of course not. Fairy Luo Ying spat in exasperation. Originally, when the 2 heavenly completion realm cultivators, Pure Yang Sacred Master and Tu Deng, appeared, they felt that the heavenly completion realm cultivators had become mere foils and clowns. However, only now did they realize that there were only 2 clowns. Chapter 9:37. The 6 reaching heaven realm cultivators worked together to break through the attacks of the 2 living corpses, but they didn't feel proud. After all, the other party had only casually attacked, and they had only barely blocked it with their full strength. You have some ability. With the strength of a reaching heaven realm cultivator, you still have such battle strength in this space. Not bad. The words of the 2 seemed to be praising, but the demon sovereign condensed a malevolent black spear in his hand. In an instant, demonic flames rose, and a demonic sun appeared in the sky, as if the entire space had turned into a demonic domain. Then, the demonic spear actually tore the demonic sun apart, and a terrifying demonic power that was enough to destroy the world rushed towards the crowd. The person in the Taoist robe pointed a finger, and suddenly a boundless Taoist connotation swept out. A finger formed 3 worlds, and each world contained a different law of power. He had actually condensed 3 types of law power, and each of them had reached the pinnacle. Yuan Demon Sky Piercing Spear. He's the demon sovereign from hundreds of thousands of years ago, the 10-directional holy demon. Luo Ying Spirit Sovereign shouted from behind, recognizing the identity of this person. Huang Wei Spirit Sovereign also said, the other is the Heaven and Earth Tao Ancestor, a Holy Spirit expert from the same era as the 10-directional holy demon. After the 2 of them finished speaking, they looked at each other inexplicably. It seemed like they were here to explain. It could also be said that this was the only use they had left. Lung Shiqi and the others also finally knew who their opponents were. These two were experts from hundreds of thousands of years ago. The demonic spear pierced through the sky, and Tu Deng chanted Buddha's name. In an instant, his whole body shone with golden light, as if he was gilding himself, and his aura suddenly rose by a lot. Indestructible Vajra, Arhut golden body. It was a powerful body refining technique that combined offense and defense. With a punch, several Arhut Dharma images appear behind him, and they also punched out. The power of the punch directly shattered the void. The Pure Yang Sacred Master was unwilling to fall behind. 9 blazing suns rose into the air. This time, each blazing sun emitted a completely different aura. Some blazed like fire, some were bone-chilling cold, and some were soft and boneless. Following that, the 9 blazing suns shot out like 9 stars in a row, heading straight for the demonic spear. The terror of the devil spear was far beyond everyone's imagination. It had easily broken through Tu Deng's Arhut Dharma idol and even flung him hundreds of miles away. If it wasn't for the fact that the Arhut golden body was strong enough, he would have been swallowed by the spatial crack. As for the Pure Yang Sacred Master's 9 blazing suns, they were all pierced through by the demonic spear. Lung Shiqi was already preparing when the two of them made their move. He also knew that if he didn't show his true strength, it would be unforgivable. Black and white light gathered and circulated around him. It was the power of yin and yang that was closest to the origin of the world. When the demonic spear pierced through the 9 blazing suns, the black and white light soared into the sky. The power of yin and yang spread out, and an incomparably harmonious aura appeared. The power of yin and yang actually fused together in midair, finally forming an incomparably huge Tai Chi yin-yang diagram. When the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram appeared, the power of the origin suppressed the world. At the same time, it also contained the supreme power of the Tao. The power of the demonic spear was already greatly reduced. Under the attack of the power of yin and yang, it finally dissipated into nothingness. The Tai Chi yin-yang diagram even greatly affected Tao, ancestor heaven and earth's 3 realms, causing the power of the 3 realms to distort. The old beggar and the other 2 people made their moves one after another, destroying the power of the 3 realms. Everyone present, including the 2 experts from hundreds of thousands of years ago, including the numerous heavenly completion realm experts, including Huang Wei's spiritual venerable and Luo Ying's spiritual venerable, stared straight at Lung Shiqi. He had actually blocked the attacks of 2 Holy Spirit realm experts by himself. Although the other heavenly completion realm experts couldn't be ignored, Lung Shiqi was the one who had played the decisive role. There's also the Tai Chi yin-yang diagram that was still displayed in the sky. The power of the origin it emitted was daunting. Several people were thinking in their hearts, is Lung Shiqi really in the heavenly completion realm? This kind of power that could directly reach the origin of the world. Perhaps it was already somewhat beyond the scope of the heavenly completion realm. The holy devil of 10 directions and Tao ancestor heaven and earth's hollow eyes revealed a dignified look. Tao ancestor heaven and earth said, the power of yin and yang has evolved to the extreme, and there is still Tao connotation. Perhaps I was wrong from the beginning. The holy devil of 10 directions said to Lung Shiqi, if you were born tens of thousands of years earlier, you would have become a holy spirit. However, even if your strength is very strong, and the 2 of us can't do anything to you, you can't do anything to us either. The current situation seemed to be relatively balanced. Lung Shiqi's side had 6 heavenly completion realm experts, but they were barely on par with the 2 experts. No one could do anything to the other, and the situation was in a deadlock. Unless there was a 7th person, the balance could be broken. Lung Shiqi raised the corner of his mouth. Who said there was no 7th heavenly completion realm expert? In an instant, boundless 9-colored spiritual light illuminated the world. It was magnificent and dreamy, and at the same time, countless figures evolved. God, devil, monster, ghost, saint. The legendary existences that existed in the falling star continent all appeared, and their power shook the four seas. A beautiful woman quietly appeared. Meng Tianzong. Meng Tianzong was good at illusions, but it didn't mean that she only knew illusions. What she practiced was the law of illusion, and she had the ability to turn illusions into reality. Everyone was shocked again. No one had expected that there really was a seventh heavenly completion realm expert. But how did she get in? How did she hide? How did no one notice her? Lung Shiqi took 2 steps forward and said, "Gentlemen, can we sit down and have a good talk?" The holy devil of 10 directions and Tao ancestor heaven and earth looked at each other. Although they used to be holy spirits, it was somewhat impossible for them to deal with 7 heavenly completion realm experts at the same time in their current state. In particular, Lung Shiqi had mastered the power of the origin of yin and yang. If they fought with all their strength, no one could say who would win. Tao ancestor heaven and earth sighed slightly. "Well, you should be the strongest people on the continent now. You're qualified to know about the shocking scam. Perhaps we can join forces." Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but feel relieved. In this unknown place, they would not fight if they could. Moreover, their opponents were the strongest people from hundreds of thousands of years ago. After the previous fight, they were qualified to talk. The holy devil of 10 directions asked first, "How did you know that there was a passage to leave the continent in the holy city?" Everyone looked at Lung Shiqi silently. Judging from the power that these people had shown before, Lung Shiqi was undoubtedly the strongest. He was qualified to represent everyone. Lung Shiqi didn't hold back. He said, "There was this rumor in ancient times. Not only me, but all the major forces and experts know about it." "Rumor?" "Yes, it's a rumor." Tao ancestor heaven and earth said solemnly, "You heard the rumor of your ancestors and walked into the holy city and here. You must have seen some people's corpses before. They may have heard the rumor left by my generation and never come here. The 2 of us only ended up like this because we heard the rumors left behind by the previous generation. Have you ever thought about the source of this rumor?" Chapter 938. The Holy City was the passageway out of the falling star continent. This rumor had been passed down for many years, generation after generation. If one really wanted to go back in time, they would have to go back hundreds of thousands of years. Lung Shiqi's mind flashed. He combined the memories left by heaven and earth Taoist ancestor and the Samsara master. The holy city was originally built by the Star Tribe to return to where they came from. After the Star Tribe was destroyed, the holy city fell into the hands of the 4 sages. After that, the 4 sages left the falling star continent through the holy city. This legend had been passed down since then. The 4 sages were the source of all this. Everyone else had thought of this as well, but so what? The 4 sages left the continent through the holy city, and so did many holy spirit experts. What did this have to do with the scam? Very soon, everyone understood the relationship between the 2. Along the way, they saw dozens of holy spirit experts' corpses. The holy demon and heaven and earth Taoist ancestors said that all this was a scam. The only possibility was that it was the 4 sages who had set up this shocking scam. The 4 sages of the human tribe who had saved the human tribe from disaster and overthrown the star tribe. This subverted everyone's worldview. The 4 sages were great people who had started the human tribe's prosperity. How could they be the source of a scam? The holy demon of 10 directions said, "You're right. Everything originated from the 4 sages." His voice was filled with hatred, as well as a hint of fear. This passageway has been very stable for hundreds of thousands of years, but the key is not the passageway, but the 4 sages. Hearing this, they looked at the surrounding space cracks and could not help but twitch their mouths. How could this be called unusually stable? Of course, they were most concerned about the 4 sages. The holy demon also gritted his teeth. "It's them. It's all their fault. This is not a passageway. It's clearly a trap set up by the 4 sages." As he spoke, he pointed in the direction of the end of the wasteland and said, "Do you know what's at the end of the wasteland? There's no so-called exit, no so-called other continent. There are only the four sages who are hunters. The four saints have never left this place. They are at the end of the wasteland. All the Holy Spirit masters who heard the rumors were killed and devoured by them. More than 100,000 years ago, the heaven and earth Tao ancestor and I, two Holy Spirit masters, entered this place together. Fortunately, the two of us detected the danger in advance and barely managed to escape. However, even so, only a trace of remnant soul was left. Everything is a lie, a scam. We have been fooled by the four sages for hundreds of thousands of years. In the end, we are just prey in their mouths." The 10 directional sky demons' words directly shattered everyone's worldview. It turned out that this wasn't a passageway, but a death trap set up by the four sages. Moreover, the four sages, who were revered by countless people, actually treated their descendants as prey, using rumors as bait to lure them into this death trap. On the road, most of the spirit cultivator who had cultivated to the peak were people with extremely high aspirations. It was impossible for them to die of old age in the falling star continent. In order to pursue greater power, they would definitely choose to enter this place, which would completely ruin their lives. However, no one completely believed them. After all, what the 10 directional sky demon said might not be true. Lung Shichi pondered for a moment and said, "Even if you and the heaven and earth Tao ancestor escaped from the hands of the four sages, why didn't they chase after you? You don't believe me?" The 10 directional sky demon was a little angry. The heaven and earth Tao ancestor continued, "On the way here, you also saw a lot of corpses. They all escaped, but their Holy Spirit and Holy Spirit have long been taken away by the four sages. They're just walking corpses. The 10 directional sky demon and I were enemies for many years, more than 100,000 years ago. We fought countless times, and because of this, we knew each other's cultivation methods and spiritual skills very well. In a moment of desperation, we abandoned 99% of our Holy Spirit, barely keeping a little bit of remnant soul. If it weren't for your vitality to wake us up, our remnant souls would have completely dissipated in at most 1,000 years." Lung Shichi asked again, "You all escaped by the way you came, but when we entered this place, the door closed and disappeared. Do you have a way to leave this place?" This question attracted everyone's attention. Now the seriousness of the matter had seriously exceeded their expectations. There were not only the remnant souls of the Holy Spirit Masters, but also the legendary four sages. Leaving seemed to be the best choice. Disappeared? How could that door disappear? The heaven and earth Tao ancestor and the 10 directional sky demon exclaimed at the same time. Then the 10 directional sky demon said in shock, "Oh no, maybe because your aura has been detected by the four sages, your aura is too weak, so they think that there will be no more Holy Spirit masters on the continent today. So they chose to completely close the passage. The next step of their plan is about to begin." Their words hit the spiritual defense line again and again, and even Lung Shichi's eyelids were twitching. What plan? Now that we have come in, we have been targeted by the four sages. We are now grasshoppers on the same rope, so there's no need to hide anything. The heaven and earth Tao ancestor said with some horror, "They want to transcend this world." For hundreds of thousands of years, they have been using this rumor to absorb the power of the Holy Spirit Masters, and then all the spiritual energy, the original energy of heaven and earth, and the power of law of the entire falling star continent. Finally, they can transcend this world. Before his voice died away, an endless holy light suddenly illuminated the whole wilderness. The brilliant holy power hit like a heat wave, and everyone felt as if they were bathed in flames, and their bodies were unbearably hot. Rays of spiritual light shone, but they were still forced to retreat hundreds of miles by the holy light. The 10 directional sky demon said in horror, "It's over. They have awakened." The Holy Spirit Masters were frightened to this extent, which showed that the four sages had left a terrible impression on them. Lung Shiqi and the others looked more and more serious. They were about to face the four sages who had created a great event for the human race. They were at most in the reaching heaven realm, and there were even two in the metaphysic realm among them. They were not qualified to even look at the four sages. How could they fight the four sages? There was no way to fight, so they could only run. However, the entrance they had come in from had been completely sealed. There was no way out now, and there was only death. Everyone could not help but feel a little desperate. Suddenly, a few voices sounded. They seemed to be far away, but also seemed to be right in front of them. In the end, it has come to this. It's just the general trend. The falling star continent is our last chance, and also our last chance. At this last moment, there's still two descendants here. I won't be polite. Chapter 9:39. Everyone did not know what had happened. Luo Ying Spirit Sage and Huangwei Spirit Sage, who were originally standing at their original spots, stiffened. Their eyes lost focus for a moment before they recovered. However, their eyes had undergone a drastic change. Those two pairs of eyes were as deep as the abyss, filled with the endless sea and fields. At this moment, Luo Ying Spirit Sage was no longer her, but one of the four saints from hundreds of thousands of years ago, Luo Ying Spirit Sage. Huangwei Spirit Sage was also Huangwei Spirit Sage. The two of them had their bodies taken over in an instant. At the same time, another two figures emitting holy light appeared in the sky above everyone. Based on the images that had been passed down, they recognized that these two were the original six directions, Saint and Wuji Saint. The four saints were indeed not dead. They even appeared in front of them. Lung Shiqi felt that his breathing was abnormally heavy. The four of them were famous throughout the world, and their reputations were known for thousands of years. Now, the four of them were right in front of him. The majestic Saint aura was like an invisible mountain, pressing down on everyone. Unknowingly, the spiritual energy in their bodies seemed to have solidified, and even their thoughts became slower. I haven't seen a living person for a long time. This aura is really nostalgic. Luo Ying Spirit Sage stared at them with burning eyes, sending chills down their spines. Huangwei Spirit Sage said in an abnormally serious tone, "All right, stop scaring them. Let's get down to business." Six Directions Saint and Wuji Saint did not seem to have physical bodies, but the holy light around them was as bright as real bodies. Six Directions Saint said, "Wuji, explain it to them clearly." Wuji Saint first looked at the 10 directions Saint Demon and Tao Ancestor Heaven and Earth. His look made the two of them take a few steps back in fear. He said, "What you said is not true. We have never lied. This is indeed the passage out of the falling star continent. If you don't believe me, you can go to the end and take a look." Then he waved his hand gently. Everyone's vision blurred, and they arrived at the end of the passage. In front of them was a huge, chaotic whirlpool with spatial turbulence constantly flowing through it. Through here, you can leave the falling star continent. Of course, the prerequisite is that you can survive in the spatial turbulence. Several reaching heaven states looked at the chaotic vortex and fell into silence. Even the 10 celestial demons and Tao Ancestor Heaven and Earth were the same. The last time they were here, they hadn't seen this thing at all. The four saints had taken away their saint power and saint soul. Therefore, they had always believed that the passageway did not exist. However, they could clearly sense a completely unfamiliar aura on the other side of the vortex. That was indeed a world outside of the Starfall continent. What they were more concerned about was why they hadn't left the falling star continent, since the four saints weren't lying. Or had they left and now had to return? They couldn't figure it out, and their hearts were filled with doubts. Only Lung Shiqi's focus was different from the others. He vaguely realized that all the energy here seemed to be slowly flowing into the vortex. It could also be said that the vortex was constantly absorbing the energy here, whether it was energy, origin energy, or the power of laws. Saint Master Wuji glanced at Lung Shiqi and said, "You've already realized that this space wasn't a wasteland back then. It was a paradise with the most abundant spiritual energy. Now, there are only a few traces of spiritual energy left." Lung Shiqi seemed to have thought of something. After they entered the secret realm in the holy city, the spiritual energy was abnormally rich, and the laws of heaven and earth were more compatible. However, after coming here, it was completely the opposite. Looking at the vortex now, he suddenly felt that the outside world was far inferior to the falling star continent. If he guessed correctly, the four saints had seized a passageway built by the Star Clan to leave here and go to a wider world. They should have left, but they found that the spiritual energy in the outside world was even more scarce. In other words, the falling star continent was a richer land. Lung Shiqi knew more inside information. Back then, the Star Clan and the Dark Shadow Clan both came from a place called the Zhongyuan continent. There was once a war between thousands of clans, and the world was torn apart. As a result, the Zhongyuan continent was divided into many continents. However, the falling star continent was not divided from the Zhongyuan continent. It was a spatial fragment created by an accident at the beginning of the world. When the spiritual energy in this world began to dissipate, the power of bloodline and the power of laws became thinner and thinner. This process was not slow in the Zhongyuan continent, but it was relatively slow in the falling star continent. Therefore, the Star Clan thought that the spiritual energy in the outside world was more abundant and wanted to open a spatial tunnel to return to the Zhongyuan continent. In the end, the Star Clan was destroyed by the human race led by the four saints, and this tunnel fell into their hands. In order to hide the tunnel, they built a holy city. Before they planned to leave, they left behind this news so that the experts behind them could leave as well. Unfortunately, the four saints also miscalculated. Saint Master Wuji said, "The world we're in is called the Zhongyuan world. 1,000,000 years ago, this world only had one vast continent called the Zhongyuan continent. Later, the Zhongyuan continent fell apart and became hundreds of continents of various sizes. Through this whirlpool, we can directly reach the original Zhongyuan continent. Unfortunately, the Zhongyuan continent and even the Zhongyuan world no longer have any spiritual energy. Not only spiritual energy, even the laws of heaven and earth are hidden. If I wait until I reach that world, my saint power will be taken away, and I will be no different from mortal. To a spirit cultivator, the falling star continent is the last pure land in this world." The old beggar and the others were stunned. They had endured for tens of thousands of years in order to find an opportunity to improve themselves. The appearance of the holy city gave them a glimmer of hope, but now they were told that the outside world could no longer cultivate. The falling star continent was the place with the most abundant spiritual energy. This was equivalent to completely cutting off their chances of becoming a saint. "You guys are unwilling, but it's useless." Saint Master Wuji could see the disappointment in their hearts. Back then, the reason why saint spirit experts like us could become saints was because we had to go through the heavenly death tribulation. However, the heavenly death tribulation back then was different from now. If you want to become a saint, you have to completely comprehend a certain law of heaven and earth. After receiving the recognition of the world, you will become a law of heaven and earth. Therefore, the heavenly death tribulation is actually a test given to you by the will of heaven and earth. However, the heavenly death tribulation that you guys are facing is no longer like that. Probably since tens of thousands of years ago, the will of heaven and earth no longer allows saint spirit experts to exist. Therefore, as long as someone triggers the heavenly death tribulation, they will definitely die. So it was like that. Everyone finally knew the truth. It wasn't that they were too weak, nor was it that their comprehension of the laws was insufficient. It was that this world did not allow them to become saints. Chapter 940. Unwillingness welled up in their hearts. The old beggar and the others hated themselves for being born in the wrong era. But thinking about it, even if they were born tens of thousands of years earlier and successfully became a saint, they would still die here. Therefore, everyone was most concerned about their own lives. The old beggar did not know where his courage came from, but he questioned, "Old beggar, I just want to know one thing. How did so many Holy Spirit experts die?" The 10 sky demons and Tao ancestor Qianquan silently retreated, afraid that the martial saint would suddenly explode and kill them. The martial saint sighed helplessly. "They did indeed die at our hands." He admitted it. Those hundreds of Holy Spirit experts had indeed died at the hands of the 4 saints. But I had no other choice. The martial saint explained, "Do you know that the spirit energy in the outside world had already dried up 2 to 300,000 years ago, and the spirit energy in the falling star continent was also constantly leaking out with this whirlpool. It was the 4 of us who worked together to set up the array to seal the spirit energy, allowing the living beings of the falling star continent to still enjoy the prosperity of spirit cultivation." Lung Shiqi and the others were somewhat skeptical. According to the 10 sky demons, the 4 saints wanted to devour the power of many Holy Spirit experts to transcend this world. But the martial saint said that they were the spirit cultivators protecting the falling star continent. Who was the one who was lying? Sacred Sovereign Wu Ji snapped his fingers, and a series of profound sacred aura arrays appeared, firmly locking the vortex in place. This saint is not lying to you, and the 10 sky demons are not wrong. Although the 4 of us are at the peak of the Holy Spirit realm, we do not have unlimited power. Furthermore, the will of the heavens and earth has already taken away our recognition, and our power is constantly weakening. In order to continue maintaining the array, we persuaded the Holy Spirit experts to help us. However, without exception, they did not mean what they said, and all of them thought of ways to return to the falling star continent. Thus, we made a decision. At this point, he stopped talking, but everyone knew what decision they had made. That was to kill the Holy Spirit realm experts that came later and take away their power. From the looks of it, the 4 saints did not seem to be that sinister, and were thinking for the spirit cultivators of the falling star continent. But were they really so selfless? Lung Shiqi couldn't believe it. Every man for himself, and the devil takes the hindmost. Not to mention the 4 saints. Even the current Lung Shiqi could behead countless people with a single word. If the 4 saints did not have any selfish motives, they would not have left the falling star continent so resolutely. The 10 sky demons immediately sneered. "Nonsense. You've never mentioned this. We were attacked as soon as we approached." That's right. Our original intention had always been to protect the spirit cultivators of the Starfall dynasty. But as time passed, as more and more Holy Spirit experts died at our hands, as we became more and more dissatisfied with this world, in the end, we still became bedeviled. As Sacred Venerate Wu Ji spoke, a black mark appeared between his eyebrows, causing his aura to become extremely evil. However, the imprint immediately disappeared. It's not entirely correct to say that we've gone berserk. To be precise, we've gone berserk on our own accord. Since the later generations are not willing to be with us, we can only make them stay here forever. Hundreds of thousands of years have passed, and we've absorbed a large amount of saint energy and saint souls. More than half of them have been used to maintain the formation, and the rest have been divided equally among the 4 of us. About 100,000 years ago, our strength reached an unprecedented peak. At that time, we felt that we might as well directly swallow all the power of the falling star continent, shatter the void, and transcend this world. Unfortunately, at that time, the world changed greatly. From then on, the whirlpool would erupt with great turbulence every once in a while. We had to go all out to barely maintain it. Once the formation is broken, the spirit energy of the falling star continent will dissipate within a few years. We have no time to set up anything else in advance. Until now, the number of times the whirlpool has erupted has increased, and it has been a long time since a Holy Spirit expert has entered. our strength has been declining. Until 10,000 years ago, we even had to abandon our bodies to survive in the form of saint souls. This is the truth that has been hidden for hundreds of thousands of years. Do you understand? Everyone was deeply shocked. It turned out that for hundreds of thousands of years, the four saints had endured humiliation and even took the initiative to become bedeviled. They even gave up their bodies to protect the falling star continent. Even if they had their own selfish motives, in the end, they still gave up on their selfishness. Of course, the premise of all of this was that the martial saint did not lie to them. After saying so much, it seemed like everything could be matched, but in the end, it was still the martial saint's own words. No one could verify the truth of these words. Lung Shiqi probed. In the past, there were Holy Spirit experts that came in and became your strength, and we only have a few Heaven Ascension stages. To the dignified four saints, this bit of strength is not even a drop in the ocean. Therefore, Junior dares to guess that the four saint lords do not want to kill us and take away our power. You can still maintain such a clear mind. Not bad. Junior will make another guess. The four Saint Venerables might still need our help, right? That's right. This time, the one who spoke was not the martial saint, but the Six Directions saint. At the same time, the Holy Sage Luo Ying and the Holy Sage Huang Wei also appeared. The Six Directions saints said, "The few of you are the strongest spirit cultivator in the falling star continent right now. This saint hopes that the few of you can help us a little and wish that we can transcend the Middle Origin world. We have protected the falling star continent for hundreds of thousands of years, and we have done our best. Now, it is time for them to repay us." Although he did not say it clearly, Lung Shiqi could feel that if the four saints wanted to transcend this world, the falling star continent would not have a good ending. The four saints who had protected the continent for hundreds of thousands of years had ended up destroying the falling star continent. Lung Shiqi was not a good person, but he had planned for 10 years to devour the world. Now, the plan had been fully activated, and the two great empires were at war. If the plan went smoothly, the falling star continent would be his before long. However, at this moment, the four saints were prepared to take away his things and even destroy them to help themselves. How could Lung Shiqi agree? Holy Sage Luo Ying continued. First of all, you have to understand that we are not asking for your opinions. After we send you out, there are two things you need to do. First, there are 4 dragon veins in the falling star continent. I will tell you the exact location later. You must obtain those 4 dragon veins. Not a single one of them can be missing. Second, this saint will give you a type of array formation. You must set it up in a set place within 10 years. If there is the slightest deviation, you should be very clear about the consequences. With that, Holy Sage Luo Ying flicked his finger, and 4 rays of golden light entered the space between Lung Shiqi and the rest brows. They immediately knew everything. Chapter 941. Lung Shiqi carefully checked the information in his mind and the golden light. He realized that Saint Sovereign Luo Ying didn't take the opportunity to plan a restriction on them. The 4 saints were so confident. Weren't they afraid that they would go back on their words after they got out? Or was it because Saint Sovereign Luo Ying's restriction was so strong that he couldn't discover it at all? Lung Shiqi nodded obediently on the surface. He didn't dare to disobey the 4 saints in the slightest. The 10 sky demons and Tao ancestor heaven and earth were the most embarrassed. They had always hated the 4 saints to the core. Now, they had become the 4 saints' lackeys and worked for them. They definitely didn't want to, but they were already lucky to have a trace of their soul left. Now, they couldn't resist the 4 saints at all. If they didn't want to, they would die. They had no choice but to use silence to express their decision. Since, before Saint Sovereign Luo Ying could finish her sentence, there was a sudden change. The originally calm whirlpool suddenly became violent, and the power of the world descended. The golden holy array suddenly started to spin, and endless holy power gathered. However, the whirlpool exploded too suddenly. It expanded more than twice its original size, and it was still expanding. The four saints were shocked. It exploded so quickly this time. Quickly stabilized the array. The four saints attacked at the same time. Holy light filled the sky and gathered in the array. Saint Sovereign Luo Ying waved her hand gently, and Lung Shiqi and the others were instantly sent to the place where they came in. Her voice was also heard. Wait here. Once the array is stabilized, I'll send you out. This sudden turn of events caused the four sages to cast them aside, giving them some time to catch their breaths and digest the four sages' words. Lung Shiqi raised his hand, and two streams of black and white light shot out, isolating the surroundings. He turned around and said, That whirlpool has gone berserk, which means that Saint Venerable Wu Ji wasn't lying about this. Everyone, what are your thoughts on this? For a moment, no one answered. What? Do all the reaching heaven realm cultivators and former saint spirits have such backbone? Lung Shiqi sneered with a cold face. Then what do you want? The 10 heavenly demons roared. You have no idea how terrifying the four sages are. Don't think that just because sacred venerable Wu Ji told you so much, you're treated as humans. In their eyes, we're not even comparable to chess pieces. Don't tell me you still want to resist. Ha! Are these the 10 heavenly demons that dominated the world hundreds of thousands of years ago? In my opinion, you're no different from a wild dog. Lung Shiqi did not give the sky fiend any face and said such words. The 10 sky demons were enraged. Demonic chi surrounded them, and their eyes turned blood red. Dao ancestor Qianquan, who was beside him, shouted, Stop! Let's hear what he wants to say. Lung Shiqi first looked at the old beggar, the blue-robed man, and the disfigured youth and said, The three of you, I still don't know your names. The old beggar stroked his beard and said, Gulu. The blue-robed man continued, King of the Eastern Sea. As for the disfigured youth, he said strangely, You didn't recognize me. We met in the beast cesspool of the blood beast sect. A strange beast phantom appeared behind him. It was completely different from the one he had attacked before, but Lung Shiqi recognized it immediately. It was the venerable beast he had seen in the beast cesspool of the blood beast sect. Unexpectedly, the venerable beast was a rank 9 demon sovereign of the heavenly reaching realm. Lung Shiqi did not understand. Since the demon clan had a rank 9 demon sovereign, why were they willing to hide in the far north wilderness? No, in the past 10 years, he had met the silver-winged demon sovereign and the gale demon sovereign several times, but they did not seem to know the existence of the venerable beast at all. Also, why did the venerable beast run to the blood beast sect? One question after another appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind, but this was not the most important thing at the moment. He continued, What I want to say is very simple. The four sages are not trustworthy. We have no way of verifying anything they say. Furthermore, have you guys thought about what will happen to us after we finish everything? The 10 sky demons said disdainfully, I advise you not to think too much. The more you think, the faster you will die. If I say there's a way to leave this place, will you believe me? Lung Shiqi suddenly said something shocking. Tao ancestor Qianquan was surprised. Really? Lung Shiqi raised a strong netherworld aura behind him. Lung Shiqi, will never yield to the four sages. You can think that I don't know what's good for me, or that I'm hopeless. Not only will I not yield to them, but I will also not yield to this world. Those who are willing to believe me, stand by my side. I can take you out, but at the same time, it's tantamount to becoming the enemy of the four sages. They may come at any time, so you only have 3 breaths to think about it. 1. Several people were a little moved, but they were also very conflicted. If they submitted to the four sages, they could live for a while, but what about later? The four sages wanted to sacrifice the falling star continent to transcend the world. As the saying goes, when a nest is overturned, no egg can remain intact. At that time, they would also have a slim chance of survival. Old Beggar Go smiled. Good boy, good spirit. Old Beggar Go will bet with you. King Dong Hai and Pure Yang Sacred Master did not say anything and directly stood over. Sovereign Beast looked at the 10 sky demons and said, "Idiots, why didn't the 4 sages leave this place and return to the falling star continent after so many years?" His words woke the 10 sky demons from their dreams. It was very likely that the 4 sages could not return to the falling star continent for the time being. Otherwise, why would they use them to set up a trap? He secretly sighed at his own stupidity. Sherfantion was not that stupid, but mainly because he was scared by the 4 sages. Tao ancestor Qianquan's fear of the 4 sages gradually dissipated. After so long, the 4 sages may not have much power left. If we don't fight, we will be slaughtered. We are not living beings. The 2 former Holy Spirit experts also chose to believe in Leng Shiqi. Tu Deng and Meng Tianzong naturally stood over. From the beginning to the end, they knew that Leng Shiqi could leave this place through the underworld at any time. Leng Shiqi said, "The situation is urgent, and there is no time to say more. Don't have any consciousness of resistance. Otherwise, don't blame me if an accident happens." Then the underworld's door opened wide, and he brought the 8 people into the underworld in an instant. However, he did not expose the existence of the underworld. Instead, he brought them to fly in the dark clouds above the underworld and sealed the aura outside. He deliberately stayed in the underworld for a while before opening the underworld's door again and bringing them to the vicinity of the Western Wasteland King's Mansion. Because the other members of the underworld were fighting, only Oziu did not participate. He was also a backup plan Leng Shiqi had prepared for himself. After everyone came out, Leng Shiqi opened his mouth and vomited blood. His face was as pale as paper, and he looked like he was seriously injured and his vitality was greatly damaged. Chapter 942. No one was suspicious of his actions. After all, he must have paid a great price to escape with so many people right under the nose of the 4 saints. None of them harbored any evil intentions at this moment. They were already in the same boat. At this moment, they only felt that Leng Shiqi was worthy of respect. The current falling star continent is divided into 3 empires. This is the Thunderblaze Empire's West Desolation County, which is also my fief. Currently, the Thunderblaze Empire and the Falling Star Empire are at war. Let's not delay. Let's take control of the 4 dragon veins that Saint Luo Ying mentioned. Leave the Thunderblaze Empire to me. Leng Shiqi used the shortest words to explain the situation of the continent. At the same time, he also told them what to do immediately. The King of the East Sea nodded and said, "I'll go find the dragon vein in the East Sea." The old beggar grew, scratched his head, and muttered, "The 2 empires are at war? When did this happen?" Venerable Beast was shocked when he heard the Demon King's words. "What's going on? The demons have left the northern wastelands." "That's right. If I'm not mistaken, the demons should have already contributed to the Northern Way Empire. Venerable Beast, let's go there and take a look." Venerable Beast's eyes narrowed. "How did you know?" Everyone was trapped in the space tunnel. How did Leng Shiqi know everything? Leng Shiqi didn't hide anything. He smiled and said, "It's rare for the sacred city to appear. We have to make good use of such a good opportunity." He didn't say it clearly, but everyone immediately understood everything. It turned out that Leng Shiqi had already planned everything before they entered the sacred city. What was his purpose? The demons had taken down the Northern Way Empire. Now, the Thunderblaze Empire and the Falling Star Empire were at war. The Thunderblaze Empire had Leng Shiqi, a Heaven Ascension realm expert, so the outcome was already decided. In this way, the whole world seemed to belong to him. All the dragon veins were naturally in his hands. No wonder he wasn't willing to submit to the 4 saints. He had long regarded the Falling Star continent as his own. They didn't have much to say. They weren't interested in ruling the world or unifying the world. Otherwise, they wouldn't have hidden themselves. However, the 4 sages' request reminded them of the importance of the dragon vein. Speaking of which, Leng Shiqi had to thank the 4 sages for giving him the location of the 4 dragon veins in the Starfall continent. 3 of them were in the imperial capitals of the 3 empires. Lung Shiqi had only just found out that there was a dragon vein at the end of the East Sea. Moreover, he reckoned that the four sages wanted to obtain these four dragon veins for the same reason as him. It was all for the power of providence. In the memories of the master of Samsara, before his last reincarnation, he finally comprehended that there was still a kind of power that could compete with the heavens. It was the power of providence. This wasn't some powerful force. It was even an illusory existence. However, the power of providence was highly valued by the dynasties of the Starfall continent. It was even seen as the foundation of the dynasty, and there were at least a few divine origin stage cultivators personally overseeing it. Lung Shiqi had also entered the dragon vein of the Thunderblaze dynasty. It was definitely a holy land for cultivation. However, compared to cultivation, the dragon vein's greater benefit was that it symbolized the dynasty's providence. There were countless people in every dynasty, and spirit cultivators were only a small part of them. If the dynasty was loyal, then all the people would be loyal. Those ordinary people's faith in the dynasty would be gathered in the dragon vein. The Starfall continent had existed for countless years. After so many years, the dragon vein had gathered a lot of faith. If he could obtain the dragon vein for his own use, it would be equivalent to having endless power of providence behind him. When Lung Shiqi could control all four dragon veins, then he would be the ruler of the Starfall continent and enjoy the power of faith of all the people. The four sages must also want to use the power of providence of the dragon vein to avoid part of the will of the world and find a way to transcend this world. Since Lung Shiqi knew everything, of course the dragon vein would be in his hands. The king of the East Sea and the beast sovereign immediately left. Lung Shiqi looked at the 10 sky demons and Tao ancestor Qianquan. Since things have come to this, why don't you recuperate in my western desolation palace for a while? If you need anything, just ask. That's good. When you recover, I still have something to ask of you. Tao ancestor Qianquan agreed. However, the 10 sky demons said, forget about me. Back then, I also left some things for the younger generation. I don't know how those unfilial descendants are doing. I'll go look for them. After saying that, he turned into a wisp of demonic chi and disappeared without a trace. Lung Shiqi turned his head and said, this time, we came out early. The war between the two dynasties has just begun. Please make a trip to the Starfall dynasty, Master Tudun. There's no need for you to make a move. Just show your strength. If the Starfall dynasty is willing to surrender, there will be less killing. Palace Master Meng, Brother Galu, Luha, Luo Ing, and Huang Wei of the Four Sages have all fallen, and more than half of the experts have gone to the Holy City. We'll split up and attack these 3 spirit domains. We don't need to kill people, but we need to do our best to plunder all the things left behind by the Four Sages. Even if we don't find anything, we have to raise the various spirit domains to the ground. The Four Sages might return to the Starfall continent at any time. Perhaps some of their methods were left behind in the Four Sages' spirit domains. Since the two sides have become mortal enemies, they had to cut off all the chances of the other side. Following that, Meng Tianzong went to the Luo Ing's spirit domain, while Galu went to the Huang Wei spirit domain. Lung Shiqi naturally went to the Six Directions spirit domain. That Six Directions spirit sovereign had caused a lot of trouble. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to endure, Lung Shiqi would have raised the Six Directions spirit domain to the ground long ago. Very quickly, 3 of the Four Sages' spirit domains were completely destroyed by a mysterious super expert. The entire Starfall continent fell into endless chaos, as if there were flames of war everywhere. And the flames of war had already spread to the Ling Bei County. On this day, the places where a large number of spirit cultivators had gathered received a piece of news. The Thunderfire dynasty had joined forces with the West Continent to attack the Starfall dynasty. There was no declaration of war, no reason to send out troops just like that. The border of the Starfall dynasty only had a few 100,000 guards. In less than half a day, the stronghold was broken through. The army of over 500,000 charged straight into the capital of the Starfall dynasty. Hearing this news, everyone felt that it was inconceivable. Where did the Thunderfire dynasty get the confidence to fight with the Starfall dynasty? What was terrifying was that not only did this happen, the Thunderfire dynasty even broke through several cities along the way and was about to reach the capital. Bang! The Starfall dynasty's emperor, Enchanting, smashed the dragon table with a slap and roared in shock and anger. How is this possible? Where did the 550,000 army come from? Lei Haoyan dared to give up the north. Is he not afraid of the Northern Wei dynasty's sneak attack? The officials below were trembling in fear. It was also at this time that a messenger ran in from outside the palace in a panic. Your Majesty, countless demonic beasts in the northern wastelands have already attacked the Northern Wei dynasty. Chapter 943. Enchanting was incomparably shocked. The demonic beasts had been hiding in the northern wastelands for tens of thousands of years. It had been too long, and the people had long gotten used to the demonic beasts being weak. Even though they had never let down their guard against the demonic beasts, they still believed that the demonic beasts would not dare to invade the continent. The demonic beasts only had 2/8 rank demon venerables, while the humans had more than a dozen mystic comprehending experts. Unless the demonic beasts were seeking their own destruction, they would not dare to rebel. But the demonic beasts had really charged out of the northern wastelands when the holy city opened. It was useless to think too much now. Enchanting still had to face the 500,000-strong army of the Thunderfire dynasty. How could he have the time to care about the Northern Wei dynasty? But since the Northern Wei dynasty had already been conquered by the demonic beasts, it was impossible to use the Northern Wei dynasty to restrain the Thunderfire dynasty. Something's not right. From the fact that the Thunderfire dynasty had completely abandoned the northern defensive line, it seemed that they had long known that something would happen to the Northern Wei dynasty. Could it be that the Thunderfire dynasty was secretly behind the demonic beast's invasion? Also, the timing was too good. When the holy city opened, most of the experts of the Northern Wei dynasty were not present. It was impossible for them to defend against the demonic beasts by relying on their combat troops. Furthermore, even if those experts could defeat the demonic beasts after leaving the holy city, the dead would not be revived. The lost cities and countless resources would not be regenerated. The Northern Wei dynasty was basically destroyed. Also, the 550,000-strong army of the Thunderfire dynasty was not something that could be gathered overnight. In other words, the Thunderfire dynasty had been planning all of this for a long time. They should have known that the holy city was about to open. Facing the powerful Thunderfire dynasty, Enchanting did not have the confidence to win. Even though the Starfall dynasty had deep foundations, they had already lost over 100,000 soldiers and a large number of cities due to being caught off guard. It would take time for them to gather their forces from other places. It was impossible to stop the Thunderfire dynasty. The only way now was to give up on the eastern provinces and gather all their forces to build a solid defensive line. Only then would they have a chance. Just as Enchanting was pondering, someone came to report. Reporting to your Majesty, the Northern Wei dynasty's Emperor Wei Xian and a large number of experts wish to see your Majesty. Enchanting's eyes flashed with joy. If there were any remaining experts of the Northern Wei dynasty, then he would have a higher chance of victory. Quick, invite him in. Wei Xuandi walked into the main hall with 2 Tianyuan cultivators. The rest of the cultivators were waiting outside, so he could not bring all of them in. Just as the 2 of them were about to exchange a few pleasantries, a series of battle reports came in from outside. Reporting, the Heaven's Pivot army was ambushed by a large number of unknown experts and suffered heavy losses. All the commanders and generals were killed, and a large number of soldiers defected. Reporting, the Migres military force was ambushed by a large number of unknown experts and suffered heavy losses. The commanders and generals were all killed, and a large number of soldiers defected. Report, As the continuous reports of defeats came in, Kongji's body trembled. All the combat armies were being ambushed. How was he going to form a defensive line to fight the Thunderblaze dynasty? Pooh! Kongji was so angry that he almost vomited blood. Your Majesty! The group of people immediately panicked. Wei Xuanyi was also a little dumbfounded. He had finally made up his mind to abandon the Northern Wei Empire and join the Starfall Empire. However, he did not expect the Thunderfire Empire to attack the Starfall Empire and pose such a huge threat to them. However, he also understood that the Thunderblaze Empire was too powerful and had obviously planned this for a long time. Right now, the only solution was to work together. He hesitated and said, "Do we really have a chance?" "Yes." Kongji suddenly erupted with a terrifying chill and hatred. Since the Thunderblaze Empire has sent out a large number of experts to ambush the various combat armies, why can't we directly attack the Thunderblaze Empire's main camp? Our empire still has many Heaven Origin Realm experts under us. If we work together, we should be able to gather around 40 of them. With this force, we can forcefully attack the Thunderblaze Empire's main camp. Thunderblaze Empire's Lei Haoyan is personally leading the expedition. When the Saint City opens, our Mystic Comprehending Realm experts are not around. He also doesn't have any Mystic Comprehending Realm experts protecting him. We can directly take his head. Also, 90% of the world's experts are gathered in the Lingbei County. As long as we can persuade them to take action, we still have a chance to defeat the Thunderblaze Empire. Buzz! However, all of a sudden, the boundless Buddha's light dyed the sky golden. Then, the dense Buddha's light condensed into a huge swastika seal, enveloping the entire imperial capital of the Starfall dynasty within it. Tu Deng floated in the air as if a god had descended. The entire imperial capital turned pale with fright, especially those Heaven Origin Realm experts. They didn't even have the courage to attack Tu Deng. Under that heavenly might, they were no different from ants. Who is he? This is too terrifying. What realm is he at? Mystic Comprehending Realm experts are far from being this strong. Could it be? Mystic Comprehending Realm. Tu Deng said. West Continent's Tu Deng is here to pay a visit. He's from the West Continent? Right now, the West Continent and the Thunderblaze Empire had joined forces to attack the Starfall Empire. In other words, this super expert was their enemy. Amipa, surrender to prevent the people from being plunged into misery and suffering. Kongji's expression was stupefied, as if he was already in a daze. Only now did he understand that he was destined to lose this so-called war from the beginning. This was a war without any suspense. Mystic Comprehending Realm expert? This world actually had a Mystic Comprehending Realm expert, and he was standing on the opposite side of the Starfall Empire. Kongji laughed bitterly. The heavens are going to destroy my Starfall Empire. Just now, he was still prepared to fight to the death. But now, he realized that even if they fought to the death, they would only be sending themselves to their deaths. The ruler of a fallen empire. Ha ha! The ruler of a fallen empire. Kongji laughed like a madman. He staggered out of the grand hall and slapped his own forehead in front of everyone. He committed suicide. Following Kongji's death, the Starfall Empire that had dominated the Starfall continent for tens of thousands of years was going to be destroyed. Many people who hadn't been affected by the war felt that it was ridiculous. Their Starfall Empire was destroyed just like that, and they had become part of the Thunderblaze Empire. Soon, the Thunderblaze Empire's army rushed into the imperial capital. They didn't massacre any cities because they were already part of the Thunderblaze Empire's territory. Lei Haoyan smoothly took over everything in the Starfall Empire. The bloody battle that they had imagined didn't happen at all. The dignified Starfall Empire was destroyed by the Thunderblaze Empire, just like that. This was something that no one had expected. On the other side, after the demon race conquered the Northern Wei Empire, the shocking thing was that the demon race didn't kill too many ordinary people. Instead, there were people who specially brought them to the Thunderblaze Empire. Anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was clearly a deal between the Thunderblaze Empire and the demon race. The demon race obtained a large piece of fertile land, while the Thunderblaze Empire obtained the world. Everyone knew that the Thunderblaze Empire's emperor, Lei Haoyan, had become the ruler of the world. But very few people knew who the true ruler of the world was. Lung Shiqi. Chapter 944. And the vast number of spirit cultivators in Lingbei County did not know what was going on. Every day, there would be news that would shock the world, such as the appearance of the Monster Clan, the destruction of the Northern Wei dynasty, the invasion of the Thunderstorm dynasty, the annihilation of the Three Realms, and so on. One by one, the news shattered their hearts. These people couldn't enter the holy city. They were only here to watch the show. But in the time it took them to watch the show, the world had changed hands. Of course, there were also cultivators from the Northern Wei dynasty, the Starfall dynasty, and the Three Realms who immediately rushed back, but they were all intercepted by mysterious experts on their way back. The only survivor was the extreme martial spirit region. The hundreds of experts in the Holy City's secret realm didn't know that the outside world had been turned upside down. There was still a fierce battle going on. A total of 7 to 5 Tongxian realm experts were fighting. Wuma Yuanjia, Chen Xin, and 2 unfamiliar experts were attacking 3 Tongxian realm experts together. The 3 were Old Man Xiao, Hateful Blade, and Yu Lin. The most powerful of the 3 was Yu Lin. His strange and unpredictable shadow secret technique was impossible to guard against. He suppressed Wuma Yuanjia and Chen Xin with his own strength and forced them to retreat. The 2 of them didn't understand why the Nether Temple would stand on the side of the Thunderstorm dynasty. Hateful Blade and Old Man Xiao were fighting with the 2 unfamiliar Tongxian realm experts. The 2 of them seemed to have just entered the Tongxian realm. They had just broken through in recent years and kept it a secret. When the 7 of them were fighting fiercely, Hateful Blade suddenly stopped. A gust of netherworld qi rose around him, and Lung Shiqi, wearing the mask of the Emperor of Fengdu, walked out. He raised his hand, and in an instant the sky darkened. Endless netherworld qi suddenly formed 6 huge whirlpools that covered the sky. The terrifying reincarnation power almost burst the secret realm. The 6 Paths wheel was like a huge millstone that stirred up the world. All the laws were shattered. Wuma Yuanjia and Chen Xin were shocked. Another Tongxian realm expert under the 6 Paths wheel, for Tongxian realm experts were crushed into powder before they could do anything. Lung Shiqi muttered to himself, "Only one more." Old Master Qiao was stunned. What was going on? Lung Shiqi didn't have time to say more. Great changes are about to happen in the sacred city. Let's go out first. Then, he brought Old Man Xiao and the others, as well as the Heaven Origin Realm cultivators of the Thunderblaze dynasty, and left the Saint City secret realm. It was also at this moment that the 4 saints finally stabilized the array. Then, their expressions froze. Only then did they realize that Lung Shiqi and the others had disappeared. How is this possible? How did they escape? There are no traces at all. This is too strange. Even a law of space can't do that. The 4 of them were furious. Lung Shiqi and the others were their last hope to take the final step. But this hope had disappeared. Moreover, he had disappeared right under their noses. Even if Lung Shiqi and the others had some secret techniques or treasures, it was impossible for them to leave this place without alerting them. Otherwise, the 10 Sky Fiends would not have died here, unless they had the power to surpass the 4 saints. However, they knew that it was impossible. Saint Sovereign Luo clenched her teeth. We should have planted a restriction in their bodies long ago. We planned to plant a restriction in them silently when we sent them out. Who would have thought that the whirlpool would suddenly change? Saint Sovereign's 6 Unity sighed. What should we do now? After they leave, no one will come in again. Then we can only go out personally. Saint Sovereign Huangwei said solemnly. No. The other 3 objected firmly at the same time. Saint Sovereign Wuji said in a low voice, Even if you have a suitable physical body, you will be severely injured by the means left behind by the Star Tribe if you force your way out. Not only will you lose a large amount of saint power for nothing, but you might not be able to suppress those who escaped easily with your weakened power. Other than this, there's no other way. As long as you lend me some saint power, I can still set everything up. When Saint Sovereign Huangwei said that, the other three fell silent. Saint Sovereign Six Unity was the first to break the silence. He directly sent a stream of saint power to Saint Sovereign Huangwei. Everything depends on you. In the outside world, the world had already belonged to Lung Shiqi. At that moment, he was in the Thunderblaze dynasty's Dragon Vein. This was his second time entering the Dragon Vein, but the feeling was completely different. This time, he stretched out his hand, and a mini dragon vein floated into his hand. Lung Shiqi didn't hesitate at all and directly swallowed it. This action also meant that the dragon vein here would no longer exist, and he would become a walking dragon vein. This might affect the Thunderblaze dynasty's luck, but the four saints had their eyes on the dragon vein as well. He had to take it away in advance. He could not let the dragon vein fall into the hands of the four saints. Moreover, since the dragon vein was valued by the four saints, it might have some special effects that Lung Shiqi did not know about. Then, he swallowed the dragon veins of the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Wei dynasty, and finally came to the EC. This was his first time in the EC. 10 years ago, he had borrowed the power of the East Sea Spirit cultivators to unify the world. However, with the increase of his strength and the existence of Tu Deng and Meng Tianzong, the power of the EC seemed to be irrelevant. The dragon vein of the EC had been found by King Donghai. As soon as Lung Shiqi entered the EC, King Donghai walked towards him. The two of them nodded to each other as a greeting, and then flew straight to the end of the EC. The end of the East Sea was a chaotic fog, and there was a spatial turbulence in it. King Donghai said, "I used to think that the opposite side was another sea, but I didn't expect it to be the end of our space. The dragon vein is here. Fortunately, it's not too far away. Otherwise, even you and I might not be able to come out alive." Lung Shiqi followed King Donghai into the chaotic fog. The two of them tried their best to resist the spatial turbulence that could appear at any time. Not long after, they finally found the last dragon vein. The dragon vein of the EC was slightly different from the other three. It was obviously much purer. Perhaps no one had obtained it for countless years. Lung Shiqi swallowed it in one gulp, and all the dragon veins in the world gathered in his body. Suddenly, a strange power poured into his sea of consciousness. It didn't have any power, but it made his perception of heaven and earth clearer. This was the power of faith that was born after all the luck in the world returned to him. Lung Shiqi didn't want to be recognized by the will of heaven and earth. Now he had been recognized by all living beings in the Starfall continent. The power of faith, perhaps Lung Shiqi was the first person to obtain this power. After all, even the four saints, even the people who had once unified the world, could not swallow the dragon vein. It was just that Lung Shiqi had not discovered the specific use of the power of faith, but before that, he had something more important to do. That was to upgrade the underworld. Chapter 945. The conditions for upgrading the Mansion of the Dead had basically been fulfilled. Lung Shiqi had stirred up the world's disputes with great fanfare in order to collect a large number of souls and turn them into merit. The Northern Wei dynasty had been invaded by the demon race, and the Thunderstorm dynasty had attacked the Starfall dynasty. He had already collected enough merit, so he had tried his best to prevent unnecessary casualties. Now, the Mansion of the Dead was only one step away from upgrading, and that was the head of a Tongxian realm expert. Lung Shiqi had first killed 6 Directions, Spirit Sovereign, and the other 3 in the Holy City. When the door was about to open, he killed Yimei. Then, he entered the Holy City's secret realm and killed Wumai Yuanjia, Chen Xin, and the 2 Tongxian realm experts who had helped them. A total of 9 people. Now, He was only short of one head. There were very few Tongxian realm experts in the world, and there were actually more Tongxian realm experts than Tongxian realm experts. It was a strange sight. Lung Shiqi already had a target for this last head. The only surviving martial spirit region of the four saint spirit regions. Not long after Lung Shiqi had brought out the people in the holy city's secret realm, the secret realm had inexplicably collapsed, and more than half of the people inside had died. Spirit Sovereign Wu Ji had been in the secret realm at that time, but Lung Shiqi did not dare to stay for too long in fear of being discovered by the four saints, so he did not specifically kill him. However, the monk could escape, but the temple could not. After Spirit Sovereign Wu Ji left the secret realm, he found out that he was the only one left of the four saint spirit regions. This successor of the four saints, the master of the spirit region, was greatly frightened. Since someone could easily destroy the other three spirit regions, destroying the martial spirit region would naturally be as easy as flipping a hand. Therefore, Spirit Sovereign Wu Ji had moved the resources and disciples of the spirit region as quickly as possible. Unfortunately, just as they had finished preparing, a person had already appeared in the sky above the spirit region. The cold netherworld energy instantly covered the martial spirit region, and some low-level spirit cultivators even died upon contact. Spirit Sovereign Wu Ji knew that this day had come. Without any suspense, Spirit Sovereign Wu Ji's head fell into Lung Shiqi's hands, and his soul was also absorbed into the mansion of the dead. The souls of 10 Tongxian realm experts had finally been gathered. Lung Shiqi entered the mansion of the dead and summoned the territory system. Mansion of the Dead has met the upgrade requirements. Upgrading the territory will require 2,000 natural days. During this period, the territory will not be able to be used. Do you wish to upgrade? Yes. The Lung Shiqi was prepared to welcome the great changes in Underworld, but strangely, Underworld did not expand this time, and there were no great changes. Just as he was feeling puzzled, he looked toward the sky above the Underworld. With a single thought, he arrived directly above the Underworld's 9 heavens. Unknowingly, a fist-sized mass of black energy had appeared here. For words suddenly appeared in Lung Shiqi's mind. World origin. The Underworld actually gave birth to the world's origin. This meant that from this moment onwards, the Underworld had truly become a world of its own. The Underworld. As for the Lung Shiqi, as long as he refines the world's origin, he can become the master of the world. He had always been the founder of Underworld, and also held the title of Lord of Underworld. In Underworld, he had many special abilities. However, compared to the world's origin, the difference was like heaven and earth. Lung Shiqi gently hooked his finger, and the Underworld's origin directly entered his body. At this moment, all the living beings in Underworld knelt on the ground devoutly at the same time. They kowtowed 3 times and 9 times in the direction of Lung Shiqi, welcoming the arrival of their master of the world. What a strange feeling. Lung Shiqi clenched his hands. He seemed to be able to decide the life and death of any living being with just a thought. Just a glance was enough to shatter the void. Then he flicked his 5 fingers, and 5 rays of light scattered in all directions. In fact, those were not rays of light, but threads of law of the power of the 5 elements. Lung Shiqi flashed to the side of an ancient tree. With a gentle wave, the ancient tree grew at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally withered and decayed. Every year, the law of time. After he became the master of the Underworld, the 3 supreme laws and the 5 elements laws of yin and yang were all at his fingertips. This godlike feeling was intoxicating. However, Lung Shiqi did not lose himself in it. He knew very well that no matter how powerful he was in Underworld, he could not bring all of it to the middle element world. After all, these were 2 different worlds. The power of law was completely different. Not only did he want to become the master of Underworld, he also wanted to break free from the shackles of the middle element world and strive for supreme power. Although Lung Shiqi could choose to be the master of his world in Underworld, Underworld was the system's masterpiece. In the end, all of Underworld's functions and powers were still dependent on the system. He had decided to be wary of the system a long time ago. All these years, he had been anxious to upgrade Underworld, not because he was greedy for the so-called master of the world. Instead, he wanted to use Underworld's power to fight against the Middle Element world, and even transcend this world like the Four Sages pursued. When that time came, Underworld or the Middle Element world would no longer matter. After Underworld's upgrade this time, there were no conditions for a second upgrade. This was because Underworld had been upgraded to its limit. Although Lung Shiqi could not bring all of his power to the Middle Element world, he could still use some of it. He had returned to the Starfall continent. He could easily use all of the laws of heaven and earth in this world. Of course, they were not as powerful as they were in Underworld. Even so, it had indirectly increased his strength, and not just by a little bit. This gave him more confidence in fighting against the Four Sages in the future. However, what Lung Shiqi did not know was that just as he was beginning to adapt to the power of the two worlds, a mysterious figure had arrived in Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region. He looked at Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region, which had been razed to the ground and turned into ruins. His whole body was burning with anger. He was the Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region Lord, who had paid a great price to walk out of the spatial passage. After returning to the Starfall continent, he came here immediately because he had left many things in Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region. If he could take them back, they could help him quickly recover his strength. However, what he saw was the scene in front of him. The Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region that he had built with his own hands, which had been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years, was destroyed. Not only was it destroyed, but it was completely destroyed. All of the disciples were dead. Even if there were fish that escaped the net, they were all being hunted down by the Blood Garment Pavilion's assassins. Moreover, Lung Shiqi had specifically ordered that no traces of the spiritual region could be left behind. Even if they had to dig 3 feet into the ground, they had to destroy everything. Imperial Prestige Spiritual Region Lord formed a hand seal, and the spiritual region suddenly displayed a realistic scene. It was the scene of the spiritual region's destruction. He finally saw clearly that the one who had done it was the old beggar. "You're courting death." Chapter 946. In the Western Wilderness King's mansion, several reaching heaven states sat together with a heavy expression. Lung Shiqi said bluntly, "Everyone, I've absorbed 4 dragon veins of the falling star continent. Now I'm a walking dragon vein. Although I don't know how to use the power of the dragon veins, the Four Saints care so much about the dragon veins. When they return to the falling star continent, they will definitely come to snatch the dragon veins." Everyone knew that he had obtained all the dragon veins, but no one cared too much. Otherwise, they would have stood out to stop him from the beginning. What they cared more about was the second half of Lung Shiqi's sentence. The Four Saints would return to the falling star continent sooner or later. Because no one would enter the holy city, the Four Saints would not be able to find pawns to use. The only way was to come out personally. Thinking of this, everyone was a little worried, as if there was a sharp sword hanging over their heads all the time. They did not know when it would fall and take their lives. Lung Shiqi continued, "I dare say that the Four Saints will have to pay a great price to leave that space, and the explosion of the vortex last time will consume a lot of their power. So don't worry too much. Even if the Four Saints reappear, their strength will be far less than now. We still have the power to fight them. It's not that easy." Gru shook his head. Heaven and Earth Tao ancestor also said, "The Four Saints have lived for hundreds of thousands of years. No one knows what trump cards they have. Even if their strength is severely weakened, they are not something we can deal with." "What you said is reasonable." Lung Shiqi stood up and said, "So we must improve our strength as soon as possible." They immediately sighed in tacit understanding. Gru said, "It's not that easy. I've been in the reaching heaven state for thousands of years. There's no possibility for me to improve." The Ten Sky Demon snorted. "It's only been thousands of years. heaven and earth Tao ancestor, and I didn't make any progress for more than 20,000 years. Otherwise, we wouldn't have entered the holy city so easily. Lung Shiqi smiled mysteriously. If I say that I have a way to improve your strength in a short time, would you believe me? The 10 sky demons subconsciously wanted to say that they didn't believe it, but they immediately remembered that Lung Shiqi had said something similar in the passage. At that time, Lung Shiqi said that he could take them out, and in the end, he really did leave without the 4 saints knowing. Now that he had said something like this, even the 10-directional holy devil couldn't help but hesitate. Could it be that Lung Shiqi really had a way? To tell you the truth, I have a mysterious secret realm in my hands. There's an extremely powerful inheritance in it. It's very useful even for reaching heaven states and holy spirits. That secret realm is called the underworld. Lung Shiqi briefly explained the existence of the underworld. He also told them that they had relied on the underworld to escape from the 4 saints. I'm here to invite everyone to join the underworld. However, since you've received something, you'll naturally have to give something in return. Once one joined underworld, it was impossible for them to betray underworld. Otherwise, they would be hunted down by all of underworld's members. Oh right, I forgot to introduce him to everyone. As Lung Shiqi spoke, he pointed at Meng Tianzong. This is not only the palace lord of the Divine Dream Palace 10,000 years ago, but also Meng Pe of the underworld. This is the state preceptor of the West State Country, and also the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva of the underworld. Only then did everyone realize that Tu Deng and Meng Tianzong had been working together with Lung Shiqi all this time. Meng Tianzong smiled. You must have suspected how I appeared in the passageway before. In fact, the underworld has the ability to connect to space. As long as you join the underworld, even if the 4 saints come in person, we'll still have the confidence to escape. She had helped Lung Shiqi at a stab. If they joined the underworld, they would be in an invincible position. If they didn't join, then they would have to bear the wrath of the 4 saints. They were all considering it. They each had their own thoughts, and Lung Shiqi didn't force them. In the end, the old beggar Gru was the first to agree. With someone taking the lead, everyone else agreed first. Lung Shiqi laughed and waved his hand to bring everyone into the underworld. Then, a series of imperial titles resounded through the world. The boundless ghost emperor of the South Pole, Tao ancestor Qinkuan. The devil emperor of the West Pole, holy demon of the 10 directions. Emperor Song, king of the East Sea. King of Mount Tai Gru. What surprised Lung Shiqi the most was that the beast venerable had actually obtained Daiding's inheritance. He had always thought that Daiding was the mount of the Ksitigarbha Bodhisattva, but he didn't expect that Daiding was also one of the inheritances of the underworld. At this moment, the 5 ghost emperors and the 10 Yama kings had all gathered. It was truly an unprecedented time for the underworld. Damn! They were still accepting the inheritance when the Dharma body of the Luin form king appeared in the distance. But these 2 words appeared. Lung Shiqi knew Ozu's personality. If it wasn't for something major, he wouldn't have lost his composure like this. He must have deduced something extraordinary. Ever since Lung Shiqi left the holy city, he had asked Ozu to find ways to deduce the 4 saints. Even if he could only deduce a little, it would be good. For so long, Ozu had been trying, but he couldn't deduce anything. Instead, he suffered backlash time and time again. Later on, he learned to be smart. He no longer deduced the 4 saints at once, but one by one. Just now, when he was deducing Huangwei Holy Sage, he finally had an idea, but it gave him a big fright. Lung Shiqi asked, "What did you deduce?" Ozu's expression was a little flustered. "Guess what? Huangwei, Holy Sage of the 4 Saints, is already here." "What did you say?" Hearing this, Lung Shiqi was also shocked. Not long ago, he said that the 4 Saints would come out sooner or later, but he didn't expect them to come so soon. Lung Shiqi quickly calmed down. "Tell me clearly, are the 4 Saints all here, or is it just Huangwei Holy Sage?" I can't deduce the other 3 saints at all. I can only deduce Huang Wei, Holy Sage. He will find this place in the near future, Oziu replied. Lung Shiqi quietly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, not all 4 of them came out, but only Huang Wei, Holy Sage. Just as he had said to everyone before, the 4 saints would definitely have to pay a high price to leave that space. Now, that only Huang Wei, Holy Sage, had come out, it proved this point. If he could come out so easily, then he wouldn't be the only one. You might be able to deduce the exact time. This. Oziu revealed a troubled expression. The difference in strength between us is too great, I'm afraid. However, before Oziu could finish his sentence, Lung Shiqi pressed his palm on his shoulder, and then a trace of the underworld's origin energy entered his body. Suddenly, Oziu's Will King Dharma idol grew rapidly, and his cultivation broke through to the Tongxian realm. What about now? Lung Shiqi retracted his origin energy and said slowly. Oziu's jaw was about to drop. What was going on? He broke through with a casual pat? Was he still human? Chapter 9:47. Oziu swallowed his saliva. Even though Lung Shiqi had given him too many shocks, he still couldn't help but feel incomparably shocked. After a short while, he finally reacted and said, although there's still a big gap between me and the Huang Wei Holy Sovereign, with the support of the underworld's power, I should be able to calculate a more specific time. I'll tell you later. Not long after, Oziu, who looked exhausted, returned. He said weakly, in about 5 days, Huang Wei Holy Sage will come looking for me. 5 days. Lung Shiqi looked at the few people who were still in the inheritance. Within 5 days, they would definitely finish accepting the inheritance, and everyone's overall strength would increase by a huge leap. His mind spun rapidly as he gradually came up with a plan that could possibly kill Huang Wei Saint Venerable. 5 days seemed to be very short, but Lung Shiqi had a way to make it very long. He waved his hand lightly, and the origin energy exploded, turning into a gray light that enveloped the few people who were receiving the inheritance. And in this area, the flow of time suddenly slowed down. A breath of time outside was 100 breaths of time inside. Lung Shiqi had slowed down the flow of time by 100 times. In the underworld, he was a god, and changing the flow of time was easy. Therefore, although Huang Wei Holy Sage would only be here in 5 days, Lung Shiqi and the others had more than a year to prepare. Lung Shiqi created a clone and sat cross-legged. He also needed time to comprehend more of the power of law and create the most suitable spirit skill for himself. His clone went out to disperse the people of the Western Wasteland King's Mansion and told the spirit cultivators and ordinary people within a radius of 10,000 miles to move away as soon as possible, so as to avoid any unexpected disasters. 5 days later, Huang Wei Holy Sage appeared in the sky above the Western Wasteland King's Mansion. His purpose here was to kill Gulu, who had destroyed his Huang Wei spirit region. It was actually very easy for Huang Wei Holy Sage to find Gulu's location, and he could also find this place in an extremely short period of time. However, he did not immediately come over because he also needed to recover a certain amount of strength. His saint power was greatly depleted when he came out of the passageway. Originally, he wanted to use the things left behind by the Royal Prestige spiritual region, but unfortunately, the spiritual region was destroyed. He had no choice but to search for some of the resources that had been left behind in the past. However, after hundreds of thousands of years, they had long been taken away by generations of people as opportunities. Huang Wei Saint Venerable finally recovered some of his strength and charged into the West Baron King Manor. However, when he arrived, he discovered that there was almost no one within a radius of 10,000 miles. Even in a king's mansion, there was only one person. That person was Lung Shiqi. It's you. Huang Wei Holy Sage naturally recognized Lung Shiqi as one of the people from back then. The Royal Majesty Holy Lord is here in person. I'm terrified. Lung Shiqi said the word terrified, but there was a smile on his face. Huang Wei's saintly venerate's expression turned cold. Immediately, the world darkened and there seemed to be thunder roaring. I gave you a way to live, but you didn't want to choose a way to die. Lung Shiqi sneered. What way to live? What way to die? I only know that if I'm in the hands of you four so-called human saints, I'll die without a burial place. Since I'm here in person, you're all useless trash. It's a good time to get rid of you rats. Huang Wei's saintly venerable began to exude killing intent. Lung Shiqi tilted his head and extended a finger. Huang Wei's saintly venerable's eyes were filled with killing intent. He clenched his hand and a heavy saint sword appeared. It was named after himself, Huang Wei's saint sword. The real Huang Wei's saint sword. He had only left behind a replica saint sword for his descendants. Although it was also a saint weapon, his sword had been nurtured for hundreds of thousands of years. It had long surpassed the category of a saint weapon. The royal might sacred sword fell. This sword seemed ordinary, but it had already abandoned all sword moves and returned to its original state. It was only until the moment the sword fell that it exploded with a powerful might that was enough to split mountains and break rivers. His sword move, engulfing mountains and rivers, was incomparably majestic. It was also an extremely domineering sword move. That kind of domineering was unlike Xiahou Ba's wild and unrestrained style, but it was the domineering aura of an emperor who ruled over the world. It was as if under this sword, both gods and ghosts would be torn apart. The sharp aura from the saint sword made Lung Shiqi feel pain all over his body. Hellish flames rose around him. At the same time, his body completely disappeared. The saint's sword fell and created a large vacuum in the hellish flames. However, Huang Wei, saintly venerable, felt that he did not hit Lung Shiqi at all. He scanned with his divine sense and tried his best to sense. However, Lung Shiqi's body had really disappeared. Only the hellish flames proved that Lung Shiqi was still here, turning into 10,000 flames. This is something that only a saint spirit expert who has comprehended the law of fire to the extreme can do. However, even a saint spirit expert cannot stop me. Huang Wei, saintly venerable, raised his saint sword. Saint light shot into the sky. A 10,000 feet long saint dragon appeared behind him. It was very lifelike. The dragon's roar was filled with endless saint aura and killing intent. The strange thing was that the sacred dragon's eyes were emitting a dense blood-red color. As he slashed out with his sword, it was as if all laws had been extinguished. The netherworld flames were all extinguished, and Lung Shiqi's figure was also forced out in a sorry state. He suddenly swung his sword. The void cracked. The sword transformed into the three realms of gods, demons, and Buddhas. What was different from before was that the three different sword techniques actually split the world. Lung Shiqi had also integrated the law of space into the three realm slash. The power of the three realms suppressed the Saint Dragon. The sword technique slashed the body, heart, and soul. The strange sword technique clashed head-on with Huang Wei, saintly venerable's saint sword. Within 1,000 miles, the space was cracked. The powerful sword and saber chi were exploding. Even Sky Origin Stage cultivators would be torn into pieces if they got too close to the fight. During the fight, Lung Shiqi flipped his left hand. A shocking sword intent surged out. The Emperor of Feng Du's Dharma form appeared behind him. As the sword slashed down, all the powers in the world were melted away. The sword of reincarnation slashed at the Saint Dragon. The power of reincarnation exploded and instantly cut off a part of the Saint Dragon's body. This caused Huang Wei, saintly venerable's sword intent to weaken. Boom! After a loud explosion, the void cracked. Lung Shiqi and Huang Wei, saintly venerable, both retreated. Huang Wei, saintly venerable, retreated a few feet. However, Lung Shiqi flew a few hundred feet away. He had to use 2 moves to barely block Huang Wei, saintly venerable's sword. He was even forced to retreat so far. Lung Shiqi had lost the fight. However, Huang Wei, saintly venerable's face darkened. Although his saint power was greatly damaged, he could only maintain his saint spirit realm. However, his accumulation over hundreds of thousands of years was unparalleled. Even if he were to fight a saint spirit expert in his peak state, he would not be at a disadvantage. However, he could not hurt Lung Shiqi even after using 2 moves. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.